He died once. Then he woke up in the past. Same world. Same people. But this time, he remembered everything. Every mistake. Every regret. He trained harder, fought smarter, mastered the sword, and grew stronger with every step. In the forest. In dark caves. In real battles. He earned trust. Claimed power. And rose faster than anyone expected. He swore an oath. Never again. Demons would fall, betrayal would be crushed, and destiny itself would be rewritten. This time, he will change everything. If you're still with me, smash that like button and let's begin. At night, Ryanja remembered waiting decades to meet the man again. He recalled how they had met almost 40 years ago, and how the man had begged to use the Great Regression technique to go back to the past. The technique was rare and needed 5 special materials. Ryanja could only provide the money while the man spent decades collecting the rest, even disappearing for years to get the final item. The man admitted he had once cursed the technique. Ryanja noticed the man had grown old and changed after all those years. The man wanted to return to the past for revenge against Wamugi, who had killed countless people, including leaders, servants, children, and animals. Ryanja could not believe anyone could take revenge on such a powerful enemy, but the man insisted he had to kill Wamugi, and revealed that the heavenly demon was his father, and needed to return to the past to confront him. Ryanja asked the man to find his younger self in the past and stop him from getting married. The man laughed but agreed to the request. They went to the place where the technique would be performed. The man said he could endure losing an arm and an eye for the secret demonic soul. Ryanja opened a box that released dark mana, prayed, and created the portal. He felt proud that his family's dream and his own wish were coming true, but suddenly he could not move because his demonic acupoint had been sealed. The man angrily confronted him and grabbed his throat. Ryanja begged for forgiveness and admitted he had lost his reason for a moment. The man forgave him, saying he had been selfish too, and thanked him for waiting all his life. Ryanja cried and apologized again. The man suddenly froze as time stopped and an old man appeared, telling him he had passed all the tests. The old man explained that the true requirement for the Great Regression technique was not the materials but years of effort and sacrifice, and forgiving Ryanja had been the final and hardest test. The man begged to be sent back to the past, saying he wanted to kill those who deserved death and save those who should never have died. He also admitted he wanted to live a meaningful life and regretted that none of his choices had truly been his own. The old man said he looked forward to seeing the life the man would live. Time moved again. Ryanja apologized once more and reminded him to stop his younger self from getting married. The man walked into the portal and disappeared. He opened his eyes in the past as a young boy standing on a stage with a crowd, feeling warmth seeing his father. Gu Pyongo called him to begin the demon skirmish, and the boy realized today was the start of a new demon skirmish. The young master recalled how his father, the heavenly demon, had shocked the cult by announcing that the next leader would not be chosen solely from his bloodline. Instead, anyone strong enough could claim the position. To prove his point, the heavenly demon organized a competition among the next generation. The winner of the new demon skirmish would earn the right to challenge one of his 2 sons, and the victor of that fight would receive a granted wish. Gu Pyongo, mocking him, asked if he intended to give up, which offended the young master deeply, as he felt Gu Pyongo considered him weaker than his older brother. Later, he discovered that Gu Pyongo had bribed the cook to poison his rice with energy-dispersing powder, which weakened him and caused him to lose the match. Reporting this to his father, he met only disappointment. That defeat forced him into desperate choices, pushing him to the edge and costing him his place in the succession war, making him realize that everything had begun with that loss. Gu Pyongo continued to taunt him, reminding him that he was the 5th disciple of Gu Qianpa, the Blood Heaven Sword Demon, known for his strength. The young master gradually understood that his father had been aware of the poison and intended to see how he would handle adversity. He also realized that, with the skills from his past life, he could defeat Gu Pyongo without using inner energy, but he could not yet reveal that. Resolving to act, he declared he would fight without inner energy, shocking the crowd and earning the title of unrivaled swordsman. Gu Pyongo also vowed to fight without inner energy, warning that his sword could cut anything. The young master tested his body, and when Gu Pyongo demanded he draw his sword, he refused, confident in his ability to fight barehanded. Gu Pyongo charged, promising to take one of his arms without killing him, but the young master moved with perfect speed, dodging easily. As his heart pounded, he struck Gu Pyongo with an elbow, then punched him in the face, spilling blood, and continued a flurry of attacks that knocked him down. Finally, he grabbed Gu Pyongo's arm and broke it, leaving the crowd in shock. Standing firm, he promised himself that having returned to the past, he would no longer let anyone control his life. His father, raising his hand, offered to grant him a wish. Unlike others who would ask for weapons or martial arts manuals, the young master requested to go on a hunt with his father, seeking to learn from him and understand the skills he loved in his youth. Initially confused, his father agreed after the young master explained his reasoning. Gu Pyongo mocked the wish as useless, but the young master no longer cared about opinions. That evening, looking in the mirror, the young master felt the strangeness of being young again. He thought of Wamugi, realizing that if he could find and kill him before he became strong, everything would be easier. However, Wamugi was mysterious, appearing suddenly in the Jianghu and disappearing after destroying the three great powers, making a direct search dangerous. For now, his focus had to be on becoming stronger than Wamugi. A bodyguard entered, praising his fight. He recognized her as Leon, who had once risked her life using the body petrification technique to protect him from Wamugi's deadly attack. Her voice was softer than he remembered, and he realized he had never truly appreciated her loyalty and sacrifices before. Now, he understood the depth of her devotion and felt genuine gratitude and respect. With renewed determination, the young master resolved to use this second chance wisely. The young master reflected on Leon's past, recalling how everyone once expected her to become the world's greatest beauty, but she suddenly gained weight. He realized he had never noticed her tears or swollen eyes and felt remorseful for possibly treating her coldly. Silently, he promised to remove the side effects of the body petrification technique for her. When Leon asked if he was alright, he replied that he felt good and playfully led her somewhere, hinting at flipping a dining table as a symbolic, playful act. That night, the young master summoned all the servants to investigate the poisoning of his meal with energy-dispersing powder. An old servant denied responsibility, explaining he had gambled away the 3,000 niang he received from Gu Pyongo and fallen into debt. The young master confirmed the source of the money and executed the guilty servant, shocking the others. He emphasized accountability, reminding Cook Lim that unfairness in the cult was not his father's doing, and ordered him to prepare shredded chicken noodles, recalling it as a memory from a past life. At dawn, the young master and his father stood at the Heavenly Demon Pavilion. When questioned about his many belongings, he explained they were for the next few days. His father reminded him that the hunt was planned for one day, but the young master suggested he might enjoy it longer. In the forest, his father acknowledged the young master's skill and insight in hiding techniques during a previous encounter with Gu Pyongo. When asked why a beast would hide its claws, the young master had no answer, prompting his father to remark that this was why he was still like a cat. They discussed the soaring sword art, a highly advanced martial art believed to be restricted to the heavenly demon's bloodline and comparable to the demon supreme's skills. The young master claimed full mastery, and when a beam struck him, he instinctively dodged, impressing his father. His father praised his mastery while explaining the danger of lying about it, and noted that his son avoided a scar resembling his own. The father acknowledged the young master's achievement, which left him grateful. The young master then asked about his father's hunting skills, learning that his father had been trained by his older brother, revealing he had an uncle. His father admitted to killing his brother at a similar age, explaining it was necessary for the young master to exist. He reflected on the deep wounds even strong people carry and acknowledged he had no other solution at the time. The young master understood that winning the succession war required such terrible choices but decided he could never replicate them, recognizing the sacrifices and gravity behind his father's strength. While climbing the mountain with his father, the young master reflected on his past life, realizing he had never married or experienced parenthood. He wondered what kind of existence he had been to his father, feeling curiosity and introspection about their relationship. Upon reaching the summit, he asked if something awaited them, and his father revealed it was their dinner, explaining they would need to kill it. When the young master questioned how he could kill something he could not see, his father instructed him to close his eyes and sense his surroundings. Following this guidance, he concentrated on the flow of his father's energy. His father then taught him to send his own energy in a thin line, like pulling a thread from a ball of yarn. The young master obeyed and initially guessed it was a tree, but upon his father's advice to search more slowly, he detected another presence. Opening his eyes, he discerned a wild boar or bear, noting its stiff fur and long body. His father confirmed it was a wild boar and admitted he too had struggled to identify it from a distance. The young master smiled at his innate talent for quickly learning martial arts, and his father acknowledged it with a smile. Later that night, his father asked when he had learned to prepare hunted animals for cooking. The young master said he had learned from a book, and his father noted his skill was impressive for someone who had never done it before. The young master reflected that his experience hunting wild boars in a previous life had contributed to his proficiency. He explained that he had prepared the meal not only for sustenance but also to earn his father's favor, believing it justified carrying his heavy belongings. When asked if his aim was to impress his father to become successor, he denied it would work, instead explaining 2 reasons for hunting with him: to learn everything from his father and become stronger, a goal he felt he had achieved. His father asked what came after strength. The young master clarified he did not wish to become the heavenly demon himself but only desired to master his father's martial arts fully, including the 9 calamities demonic art, aspiring to surpass even his father, as the heavenly demon had lost to Wamugi. His second reason was personal. He wanted to spend time alone with his father, as it was their first true opportunity. Though his father dismissed such emotions as dangerous and useless, the young master argued that being with the strongest person made every activity, even singing or drinking, extraordinary. As dawn approached, he suggested returning, but his father insisted they first hunt a tiger. Following instructions, the young master closed his eyes, focusing on sensing the wind and infusing his energy into it, learning a method previously unknown to him. His father emphasized that slow energy discharge would be ineffective, highlighting the importance of speed for survival. The young master successfully sensed the tiger and learned that maintaining multiple energy lines increased his survival chances. Later, at the campfire, he presented a bottle of strong liquor, calling it his strongest trump card. His father tasted it and approved, noting that a demonic human should never complain about strong liquor. The young master insisted that inner viciousness mattered more than drinking. When asked if he could kill his father to survive, he refused, reasoning that a child could not kill a parent, though he admitted inwardly he could if circumstances demanded it. His father rebuked his hesitation, associating it with the absence of a truly vicious heart. The young master then resolved to learn to drink strong liquor and took a sip, demonstrating humility, determination, and his desire to grow stronger in all ways. The young master sat cross-legged in his room, reflecting on the days he had spent training since his regression. He had now mastered infusing his energy into the wind freely, and could maintain 3 to 4 lines of energy. He felt grateful to his father for teaching him to discharge energy to sense his surroundings, considering it like gaining an extra life. With further training, he believed he could release over 10 lines at once, capable of breaking any stealth technique used against him. He recalled how even his father had lost to Wamugi despite the heavenly demon pavilion being heavily defended. The pavilion was protected by barrier and trap formations, elite guards, and 8 demon supremes positioned in all directions with their forces, including the One/Sword Supreme in the north and the crazy monks in the northwest. Initially, he had believed the enemy had broken in from the outside, but he later realized the outer defenses had never been breached. He concluded that at least one, possibly more, of the 8 demon supremes had allowed Wamugi inside. The traitor was never found, and after his father's death, the demon supremes did not seek revenge but closed the demonic cult instead. With knowledge from his past life, he now understood their lives and final moments, and resolved to fully utilize all 8 demon supremes this time. Outside, a man called Leon Fatty, and asked if the second young master was still at the training ground. He told her to drag him out because he could not wait any longer. The young master recognized the man as Yangpa, a disciple of the Blood Heaven's Blades man, and noted that Yangpo's boldness stemmed from his father's declaration that anyone in the cult could become successor, making the heavenly demon's son less special and fueling disciples' ambition. The young master asked Yangpo what he wanted. Yang claimed he already knew and stated that Pyongo could no longer practice martial arts because of him. The young master suggested he could go look after Pyongo, but Yang shouted that he was serious and insisted the young master take responsibility for crippling Pyongo and apologize officially. The young master realized Yang wanted an official apology to impress his master, as the best disciple had not yet been chosen. He told Yang that doing so would not guarantee being chosen. Yang insisted he was only there for Pyongo. The young master demanded he apologize for speaking rudely to his subordinate. Leon thought it was fine, but the young master intervened, ordering Yang to kneel and apologize. Yang refused, claiming he would rather die than kneel. The young master accepted his words, unsheathed his sword, and warned that Yang's master would not be pleased if he retreated. Yang questioned why the young master was going so far, and the young master explained he would never allow an insult to his subordinate. Yang laughed, asking if the young master was really trying to kill him over a subordinate, to which the young master affirmed that it was how much she meant to him. They faced each other as Yang unsheathed his sword, intending to take the young master's arm instead of his life. Before anyone could react, Yang rushed forward, but the young master moved faster, piercing Yang's sword through his mouth. He declared that Yang's mouth had caused his death because it had insulted his subordinate, and refused to apologize, as blood sprayed into the air. Yang fell to the ground defeated, and his subordinates rushed forward shouting at the young master, asking if he could handle the consequences of what he had done. Young master warned them that their mouths sounded just like Yang's and told them to carry his exact words or he would find them at dusk. They lifted Yangpa and left in silence. Leon asked why he had done all that for someone like her. Young master told her it was not because of her, he had simply killed someone who deserved it. She worried that the Blood Heaven's Blades man would not let this go. Young master understood her fears since the 8 martial masters held great influence and power, and the Blood Heaven's Blades man was one of the demon supremes. He had already crippled one disciple and killed another. Still, he said the master would not intervene because there was nothing to gain and he would only be criticized for teaching his disciples wrongly. She wondered if his pride might be hurt, but he said he had no such pride. With a small smile he told her not to worry about him. As he walked, he thought he would actually gain something from killing Yangpa. He had defeated Gu Pyongo and now killed Yangpa, which would draw attention within the cult. If the succession war granted points, this would count as one. Leon thanked him sincerely, and said she was truly happy that he took her side. He smiled and told her she had better remain thankful for life. Inside, he hoped she would keep smiling like that and continue to live with that smile. Later, while sitting on a stone, young master thought about how he had been drowned in defeat after the demonic cult disbanded. He remembered the deep depression he had felt, and how he might not have continued living if he had not been running toward a goal. He wondered what would have happened if he had never learned about the Great Regression technique. Suddenly, a blade pressed against his neck, and he realized it was the Blood Heaven's Blades man. He widened his eyes, thinking he could not dodge the sword in his current weakened state. But the Blades man sat beside him and asked why he had done it. Young master said it was because Yangpa acted foolishly and asked if the Blades man had come to pick a fight with the youngest son of the heavenly demon. The Blades man put the sword down and asked if he should cut off his head to see if the heavenly demon would care. Young master said he doubted the sword could harm him if his father's terrifying eyes were considered. The Blades man smiled, marking the ground with his sword, and said he wanted to see how much the heavenly demon cared. Young master said as his son he would matter at least that much. The Blades man suggested testing it by taking only his head. Young master smiled and said there was no need because his father had 2 sons and the Blades man was alone. The Blades man admitted he was not as foolish as his disciple. Young master said if his disciple had been like him, he would still be alive. The Blades man said he had lived a life of misfortune and hoped they would not meet often. Young master promised to remember that. The Blades man then jumped into the sky and disappeared. Left alone, young master lifted his shirt and saw his scars. He thought about how the Blades man appeared to act freely but actually calculated everything meticulously. Repeating twice that he would carry only his head showed he had really planned it. He realized the Blades man had come to see him, likely impressed by his previous fight and his wish to hunt with his father. Young master landed on the roof and called for his father. His father turned and said he had heard that young master had killed the disciple of the Blood Heaven Sword demon. Young master said the disciple deserved to die. His father told him that whether he deserved it or not did not matter, because the Blood Heaven Sword demon had come looking for him and wanted young master to be punished. Young master repeated to make sure he understood that the Blades man wanted him punished for killing his disciple. His father confirmed this and added that it was unexpected because the Blades man did not usually make such requests over a single disciple dying. Young master thought the Blood Heaven Sword demon was testing his relationship with his father, wanting to see if he would be punished and what kind of punishment he would receive, as well as whether his father considered him a successor candidate. His father said he intended to punish him. Young master said there was no reason for punishment, but his father reminded him of the earlier hunting conversation when he had asked which demon supreme he trusted the most. Young master nodded, remembering that his father had not given him an answer at the time. Now his eyes widened as his father said he did not trust anyone, not even the demon supremes, and told him that hierarchy and discipline needed to be set in order within the cult. Young Master said he felt that somewhere along the line, they had lost the path of the demon. His father asked what that meant to him. Young Master explained that the path of the demon was the cult's belief to defeat absolute evil and that he did not think the orthodox faction was the direct opposite of their cult. Young Master explained that the true enemy was not the orthodox faction but absolute evil, the kind so vile that even demons would turn away. He said the orthodox faction could handle small evils, but not those who had abandoned their humanity. Only their cult could destroy such wickedness by being even more ruthless. He believed the path of the demon was fulfilled when the great evil, the kind even the orthodox faction could not defeat, knelt before them. If they could not stay true to this path, they would not survive. He thought his father had never heard such ideas, because he himself learned this only after wandering the Central Plains in his past life. His father asked if he had any other arrogant thoughts. Young Master said no. His father then said he understood why the Blood Heaven Sword demon wanted punishment. He had seen something in Young Master and wanted to test him. Young Master said the old man probably saw a possibility of a successor or someone who could ruin the cult. His father said either was possible and told him to follow. Young Master asked where they were going so late. They reached the Minor Heaven Cave. Young Master knew this was where possible successors were tested, where entering was easy but leaving was uncertain. Many who went and never returned, and even those related by blood had a 50% chance of dying. His father confirmed he wanted him to enter. Young Master asked how long it took his father to escape. His father said 2 months, which was the fastest in history, while others took around 3 years. Young Master asked if he was really being sent in without preparation. His father reminded him this was the punishment. Young Master asked if he truly did not care whether his son lived or died, or if he hoped he would survive and grow stronger. He accepted the challenge, and said he would try to come out even earlier than his father. His father simply told him to stay alive. The young master walked through the hallway and wondered how terrible this place must be for so many people to get trapped here. He read the announcement on the wall that told him to defeat all enemies without using sword aura, that failure would give another chance after 10 days, and that those ready should stand in the crimson circle. He thought about the 10 days and the grain balls he would have to eat and decided there was no reason to delay. He stepped forward and many robots appeared around him. He noticed the red marks on their bodies and understood that he had to strike those points. He swung his sword again and felt how tough they were. He refused to let any of them endure. He pushed through the final one and rushed ahead, relieved that he did not lose focus and waste another 10 days. He knew that before his regression he would never have cleared this first trial. He reached the wall where others had carved their struggles and saw notes about 9 tries, 16 tries, 37 tries, fear of dying inside this place, and even someone claiming to be the strongest after 6 tries. The young master studied the carvings on the wall, and realized they were left by those who had trained here before him. His eyes widened when he recognized the handwriting at the end and understood it belonged to his father. He felt surprised that his father had scolded their ancestors so bluntly. He looked around at the many different weapons and understood that this trial required using them wisely. He read the next instructions. He had to use the swords on the wall to split a stone in half within 2 hours. He was allowed to use sword aura or enhanced sword aura, and another chance would come after 20 days. As he stepped forward, he thought 2 hours felt too long for cutting a single stone. With enhanced sword aura he could cut hundreds of stones. There had to be a deeper reason. He struck the stone and the sword snapped. He realized simple slashing would not work. He considered using enhanced sword aura to finish quickly, but the idea felt too easy. He wondered how others had managed it. Then he found his father's message that said absolute nonsense, and warned that heat meant failure. He questioned why his father had written that instead of mocking the others like before. He read the instructions again and noticed that they said he may use sword aura. That meant the real success required avoiding it. His father's warning made sense because enhanced sword aura produced heat. He attacked the stone again and again but could not scratch it. His time was almost gone. He wondered if he should use enhanced sword aura anyway, but he remembered his father had split the stone without it. Aura rose around him and he suddenly sensed a faint line around the sphere that he could not see with his eyes alone. The line formed a perfect circle. He struck that point and the stone split cleanly into 2. He shouted with relief and saw a demonic essence pill hidden inside. The young master consumed the demonic pill and sat on the ground in a cross-legged position as his aura flared around him. When he stood up, he felt a strong power filling his body, a power he had never felt before. He realized that the thing he had always lacked was energy, and now he finally had it. The next instructions told him to differentiate life and death, to try again in 5 days if he failed, and to stand within the Crimson Circle if he was ready. He understood that this trial was about identifying herbs and poisonous plants. He had already searched everywhere for the ingredients Ranja once requested, so he knew how to tell herbs apart, and even understood their effects. For him it was simple. He noticed that the only safe herb was placed to prevent lucky guesses and force the unprepared to face a second test. Those who knew nothing about herbs had to consume them and learn through pain. When he saw no more instructions, he understood that his father was warning him not to rely on luck and to remember everything from the beginning. The last trial was to survive the illusory life and death trap formation. If he died inside, he would truly die. His father had left hints again, and the young master felt they were guidance for how he should live from now on. His eyes widened as he stepped into the illusion. The desert around him felt real, so real that he murmured in disbelief at the power of the formation. Monsters appeared in every direction holding weapons. Even though they were illusions, he could feel their presence and their killing intent. He accepted it as a perfect chance to test himself. He drew his sword and met the first monster head-on, driving his blade through its face. Since he was not fighting humans, he did not need to hold back. He moved freely, strengthened by the demonic essence pill that allowed him to control his energy without effort. More monsters closed in from every side, and he cut through them with powerful swings, tearing them apart as blood scattered through the air. When the battlefield fell silent, he wondered if it was over, but a smile formed when he sensed more enemies approaching. The energy coming from them was stronger than before, and he welcomed the next challenge with growing excitement. The young master kept fighting stronger monsters and felt their power rising. For the first time since his regression, he faced a battle where his life was truly in danger. His past life insights mixed naturally with his current body, and he moved with sharp focus. He blocked every strike and demanded stronger enemies as he pushed himself further. When he cut down the last monster, he wondered if the trial had ended. The system told him he had passed and hoped his strength would help the heavenly demon divine cult. He smiled because he finished all trials in 1 day while his father once needed a month. He chose to hide his achievement and train quietly. He wanted to digest everything he learned. After 100 days, he met his father again. His father said he had taken exactly 100 days. The young master answered that he tried his best but failed to beat his father's old record. He also said the stone ball hint was easy and that he had not rested during the final illusion. His father showed a quiet smile, and the young master felt a small pride. He reminded himself that he was the son of the great heavenly demon. In his past life, he once believed his father enjoyed pushing his children into deadly fights, but now he understood that his father had only acted to protect the cult. Sima Myung arrived and praised him for completing the minor heaven cave. He said there was a matter to discuss, and the young master knew it came from his father. Sima spoke about an anonymous letter accusing the demonic army of corruption. A similar letter had arrived last year, and the officer handling the case had been killed. His murderer had taken his own life. Sima asked the young master to become the new special investigation officer. The young master understood the danger. Anyone caught would be executed and would try to silence him. Even being the heavenly demon's son would not protect him. Sima confirmed that he would be risking his life. The young master accepted because he knew this was another test. He asked his father for a drink before leaving and thought his father cared more than he showed. Later on a bright day, Seo Daryong from the Nirvana Pavilion introduced himself as the officer assigned to him. The young master questioned why he was there and joked about asking for the most beautiful woman. Daryong joked back and the young master told him to focus. When asked if they were leaving now, he nodded and asked about the army commander. Daryong explained that Gu Qianyang had led the army for 8 years and turned it into an elite force. The young master pointed out their skill and asked why he lacked enthusiasm for the investigation. Daryong said he would do his job but doubted the cult would change. The young master asked if he was afraid since the previous officer had died. Daryong said he felt no fear. When pressed, he revealed the dead officer had been his teacher. The scene moved to the demonic dragon court where a guard asked Daryong about his identity. Daerong introduced himself as a special investigator from the Nirvana Pavilion and demanded to pass, but the guard refused and mocked his appearance. Daerong showed an order document, yet the guard insisted that only higher-ups could approve entry. Daerong pushed back and questioned whether the guard would really block an investigator with an official order. The guard dismissed his authority and claimed that titles meant nothing in this place. The young master stepped forward and asked if the guards knew who he was. When they confirmed, he struck them and scolded them for their rude behavior before ordering them to lead the way. Daerong followed and shouted inside the court, accusing everyone of blocking an official investigation and demanding they reveal their identities. An old man stepped forward and introduced himself as Go Dang, the captain of the First Corps. Daerong recognized him as a dangerous figure but still warned him to mind his words. The captain challenged him, and Daerong responded by declaring that anyone who interfered would be arrested for insulting and obstructing the Nirvana Pavilion's investigation. Captain Go clenched his teeth and challenged the young master, but the young master met him warmly and reminded him of their last meeting at a banquet. When Go kept acting tough, the young master squeezed his hand and warned him to stop or lose it forever. Go mocked noble birth and questioned his skill, but the young master answered by asking if he could even hold a sword with that hand, and Go backed down. The young master thanked him and promised a drink later, and then told Daerong that he had met Go for the first time and had broken his hand on purpose during their handshake. They then continued, and a knight tried to stop them, but the young master grew tired and warned him that blocking an official investigation meant blocking the cult leader, and the knight stepped aside and addressed him as second young master. Inside, the commander apologized for his men, and the young master felt a dangerous strength in him, and replied that the men should learn more instead of fighting, and corrected his old saying about bravery. The commander admitted he might have fallen behind and then asked why the young master was chosen and heard that it was punishment for a small mistake, and became excited. The commander then confirmed that another anonymous letter had started the investigation and spoke of the slander that wore him down, and the young master promised they would finish quickly and hoped he would understand. The commander said he thought their bond meant more but insisted each person stood on their own and still supported him, and the young master laughed and felt secure and said he would rely on him, and the commander answered that he would rely on him too and would prepare a place for them, and warned him to stay careful and denied that this was about the previous investigator death, and said surely the cult leader would not send his own son to die, and the young master thanked him and left, and thought his father might have sent him so either he or the commander would die. The scene then moved to the cult leader and Sima warned that this matter was heavy and that he should have handled it himself, and the leader answered that the boy had said they had lost the demonic path, and Sima asked if that was why he sent him, and the leader replied that bold words needed proof through action. People murmured in shock about the dead crow, and the young master saw that the guards were the most upset. When a man shouted that it was too much, the young master asked his name and learned he was Jang Ho, the 3rd Corps commander, and known for skill and temper. The young master asked calmly if he had complaints, and Jang Ho shouted that the act was rude and disturbing. The young master explained that someone had thrown it on his bed, and he thought it might be a custom, and Jang Ho told him he should have punished the person instead of doing something unpleasant. The young master then told him he would start with him, and ordered him to give all records about his finances and movements, and warned that blocking the investigation could be seen as treason, and Jang Ho agreed with clenched teeth. Later in the investigation room, the young master told him he knew it was Jang Ho who sent the anonymous letter, and explained that Jang Ho had been drawn into yesterday's incident even though he did not have to, and that he did it so the commander would not be suspected, and that his soldiers showed discipline and worry and did not laugh when the crow was hung, and this showed a man who would not ignore corruption, and he also felt a memory from his past life where a strong commander died after sending a similar letter, and thought Jang Ho might face danger as well. Jang Ho admitted he did not know if the letter would work and apologized, and the young master joked to Daerong about such honesty, and Daerong reminded him he was younger than them, and the young master then asked what was truly happening here. Jang Ho explained that the demonic army commander used the army for his own gain, and took money for assassinations and forced his men to carry them out, and the young master felt this was far worse than simple bribery, and Daerong could not imagine how it could happen. The young master said he could see who was involved by watching each corps and believed the 1st Corps was responsible because they reacted first and loudest, and he asked how Jang Ho learned the truth. Jang Ho answered that the martial artist who died after killing the previous investigator was his close friend and that he had been the first to send an anonymous letter, and when asked how close they were he said they joined at the same time and were like family. The young master asked who killed him, and Jang Ho said he believed the commander ordered it, and Go Dang carried it out, and the young master felt this meant deep corruption, and even murder of an investigator, and wondered if his father or Sima truly did not know and felt this might be a test for him. The young master told Jang Ho he had made a good friend, and Jang Ho said his friend was good and that he wished he had been strong enough to save him, and the young master thanked him for his courage, and Jang Ho wept, and the young master felt new hope for the lost demonic path and thought of building a cult where such men could serve, and vowed this time Jang Ho would not die because his regression existed to save those who should not die. Later, while walking, Darong told the young master that he was very different from the rumors, and the young master asked what they were, and Darong said some thought he was not suited to be the heavenly demon and apologized, and the young master smiled and said it was fine and even a compliment, and thought that being suited to lead a cult built on terror was no praise and that it was time for change, and Darong was shocked when the young master said the cult and his family would face destruction if it did not change. The scene moved to the next day when an investigator came running and shouted that there was trouble, and when they entered the young master saw injured investigators and his eyes widened, and he asked Darong if he was hurt, and Darong said he was fine but his colleague was badly injured, and the young master told them to take him to the infirmary, and when they returned he asked Go Dang if he had done it, and Go Dang admitted it, and said the man bumped him and did not apologize, so he taught him a lesson, and the young master said it was clear he had started it, and would not have accepted an apology. Go Dang laughed and agreed. The young master told him that his subordinates were poison to him. Go Dang mocked the idea and said there were too many people in the world who did not respect the demonic army. The young master warned him that he had the authority to decide an execution. Go Dang answered that even then he doubted the young master could carry it out. The young master explained that this kind of behavior was the poison he spoke about. He said fools acted that way when they cared too much about how others saw them. This should have been a moment where Go Dang felt nervous, but instead he acted tough in front of his subordinates. The young master thought Go Dang was blind to the reality of the situation and walked forward. Go Dang warned that fighting him meant fighting the whole demonic army and questioned whether the young master had such courage. The young master answered that at least he did not hide behind his subordinates. Go Dang showed his injured hand and claimed it was because of a coward, telling the young master to consider himself lucky. The young master offered to fight without using his right hand and asked if Go Dang wanted a duel between the two of them. Go Dang mocked him and accused him of planning to report to the cult leader after getting injured. The young master swore that he would not hold him responsible even if he died. Go Dang then unsheathed his sword and accepted. Darong warned that Go Dang was ambidextrous and could fight with his left hand as well as his right. The young master understood why Go Dang was so confident. Go Dang attacked, but the young master dodged, causing dust to rise as the ground cracked. The young master countered and cut Go Dang's arm. Go Dang screamed in pain and the young master followed with a punch that sent him to the ground. The subordinates shouted in shock. The young master declared that the crimes of those who had just died were treason. Go Dang begged for mercy in a weak voice. The young master asked if he ever thought about the families of the people he killed at the bar and reminded him that they lost fathers and husbands and would never live normally again. Go Dang admitted his fault. The young master told him to be silent, and crushed him under his foot. The subordinates were shaken as the young master demanded who he thought he was to kill members of their own cult. At the event, music played and people danced while the young master sat with Qian Yang and drank. Qian Yang said he heard the young master had trouble on the ground, and the young master admitted calmly that it was not intentional. Qian Yang said the first corps commander had been sent because there was no other choice, and the young master judged him silently, feeling that many things about him were strange. Qian Yang reminded him that the man had once served him and accused the young master of turning him into a criminal instead of avenging him. He warned that killing a demonic army commander could cause danger and suggested ending the matter since the deaths already were enough. The young master thanked him but said the lack of evidence was a problem because he came for an official investigation and had nothing to report. Qian Yang suggested making up evidence, but the young master refused because the crime could not be covered easily and the investigation could only end with real proof. Later Darong arrived and asked why the young master was there, and the young master said it was natural to check on the injured man. Darong said the demonic physician was treating him and thanked the young master for arranging the visit. The young master said it went without saying because even as a temporary investigator he still saw them as colleagues. An old physician then arrived and the young master asked about the injured man. The physician said his life was safe but he needed time to recover, and the young master told him to use the best medicine, which he promised to do. The investigators looked emotional, and one thanked the young master with joy. Later Darong asked what the demonic army commander had said, and the young master explained that he wanted the investigation to end and for them to blame the First Corps commander. Darong was confused because an important subordinate had died, but the young master said the man had only been used the most and would be replaced. He said he had thrown bait to see Qin Yang's reaction and would explain later. When Darong asked what he should do, the young master told him to drink with him, which made Darong smile and offer to pay. The next day Darong reported that the demonic army had given them books of assassination request logs and banknote papers found in the First Corps commander's house. The young master told him to find the smartest man in the First Corps because someone skilled must have made those papers, and then said he would meet the commander again to buy time. In the hall he announced they had received evidence, and Qin Yang celebrated and suggested drinks. The young master said it was a problem because the evidence came from the demonic army and not from their own investigation. Qin Yang asked if it mattered, and the young master said it did because the chief advisor would grow suspicious. Qin Yang asked what to do, and the young master told him to pretend to investigate for a little, while by planning a search and asking for help. Qin Yang agreed, and the young master felt relief because he only needed simple records and wills to compare handwriting. The scene then shifted to Yang Gu of the First Corps tied to a chair and asking why he was captured. The young master told him he forged the logs, and Yang denied it. The young master said he expected that because Yang likely only followed orders and told him to be honest, but Yang kept denying. The young master said he understood because Yang feared the commander, and then told him he was free to go. Yang was shocked as the young master said that without answers nothing could be done. The young master said he disliked hurting loyal men but warned that the investigators would be safe while the commander would kill Yang sooner or later. Yang asked why, and the young master explained that the commander already knew Yang was taken and would assume confession if he returned unharmed. The young master said Yang knew well what would happen after that. Darong explained that the demonic army commander had ordered the killing of the Nirvana Pavilion investigator and Zhang Ho's peer, and that Go Dang had followed those orders before dying. He said many other horrible deeds had been done and many people had died, and that the commander would never allow himself to be arrested. The young master answered that he did not plan to arrest him because he meant to kill him. Darong was shocked, but the young master said arresting him would only cause trouble because the Blood Heaven's Sword Demon would interfere and the commander's supporters would twist the truth and harm more people. If the commander lived, then more people would die while protecting the truth, and Darong would also be in danger. If the commander died, then everything would be simpler, and they would only need to show his crimes. Darong asked if he would be safe, but the young master said not everyone sought revenge and that the Blood Heaven's Sword Demon would not throw away his life for emotion. When Darong asked where he was going, the young master told him he was going to kill the demonic army commander and left him wide-eyed. Later the young master told Qin Yang that the investigation was completed thanks to his help. Qin Yang said he was glad even though he felt sad to part ways. The young master said that if he became successor someday he would repay him, and Qin Yang said he would remember the young master's kindness. The young master invited him to drink and Qin Yang agreed. The young master then asked why Qin Yang continued to use the demonic army for money when he already had enough to live forever. Qin Yang avoided the question and told him to ask the dead First Corps commander. The young master called him a puppet and said he wanted to hear his real thoughts. When he crushed the bottle, he said Qin Yang had only darkness and greed inside him. Qin Yang shouted but froze when a sword went through his chest. The young master drank calmly and announced that the demonic army commander was under arrest for misuse of power and ordering many murders. Qin Yang said it was not an arrest, but the young master said he would be executed anyway and should leave the world for the sake of those who would live on. He pulled the sword free and Qin Yang collapsed as blood spread and people around them stared in shock. The young master then shouted that the commander had died while resisting arrest and ordered Co. Darong to arrest all First Corps members and imprison them because the case would now be investigated officially. Darong bowed and accepted. The young master then called Zhang Ho and ordered him and all Third Corps members to help arrest the First Corps, saying his authority was complete and his orders carried the same weight as the cult leaders. Everyone moved with hope and Zhang Ho answered with determination, which made the young master smile. The scene shifted as the young master returned to his clan and walked into the main hall where his father and the subordinates waited and the Blade Man stood among them. The young master bowed to his father and greeted the Blood Heaven's Sword Demon, and the Blade Man asked if he had been well and said he wanted to hear from him what had happened. The young master said it was written in the report, but the Blade Man insisted on hearing it directly, and the young master saw that others watched to see his answer. He explained that the investigation showed the brother serious crimes and that he tried to kill him during arrest, and he apologized for the death. The Blade Man said punishment was natural but that he could not understand it because his brother would not act so foolishly, and the young master said he also did not know and guessed the commander could not accept being caught by someone younger. The Blade Man said he saw the corpse and that a single strike pierced the chest and that the young master's skill was greater than expected, and the young master said it was thanks to his father, and that the commander was agitated and weak. The Blade Man said he was relieved, and the young master apologized again, and thought it strange that he showed no anger even after losing both disciple and brother. The leader told the Blade Man to rest and prepare the funeral, and the old man bowed and left. The young master thought maybe the Blade Man would question his father about how it was handled. Sima praised him and said the evidence was strong and the case ended clean, and asked if he was hurt, and the young master said he was fine and thanked them. A masked man brought a box and Sima said it was a reward, and when the young master saw the sword he widened his eyes. Sima announced that the leader granted him the black demonic sword, and the young master said it was a treasure sword and joked that the white demonic sword suited him more, and his father said the black one suited him better, and the young master said he knew too little about him and thought about the cold energy of the blade. Sima said the leader must feel proud, and the young master said the reward was too great, and Sima explained it was not because the demonic army commander was the greatest danger, and the clean result was unexpected, and then asked the leader if he expected it, and the leader said no, and that he only hoped the young master survived, and the young master thought this was a lie and that his father trusted him and gave him the sword to send a message to the Blood Heaven Sword Demon, and that it meant recognition but also a limit. The young master bowed and thanked him for the sword and its meaning, and the leader told him he could leave. Outside he walked quietly, and the Blade Man came and spoke calmly about the warm sunlight, and the young master expected he would not leave and sat beside him and spoke about the heat. The Blade Man suddenly roared as if accusing him of killing his brother, but then smiled and asked if that was what he should say, and the young master snapped and warned that if he caused chaos for his corrupt brother he would crush him, and then added with a smile that this would have been his answer if the old man had spoken it, and the Blade Man laughed and said he should have gone easy on his brother. The young master explained he tried to resolve it peacefully, but the commander went too far and asked why the Blade Man ignored corruption, and the old man admitted his brother never listened, and that after hearing of his death he felt strange relief because the man no longer blocked his path. The young master was surprised and said he understood because he would feel the same if his own older brother died, and the Blade Man's eyes widened in shock. The young master wondered what people truly saw when they looked at him, and the Blade Man said the year would grow hot and walked away. The young master answered that he was not weak to heat and thought that he still could not understand what the Blood Heaven's Sword Demon intended. Even if the man felt relief, he was still the brother of someone he had killed, and maybe he would seek revenge, or maybe let it drift away like clouds. Either way, the young master felt no regret. Later in his room he examined his sword and thought that the first moments with the new blade mattered because a sword shared a deep bond with its warrior, and a supreme weapon shared even more. If the communion failed, the sword could not show its full power. He greeted the sword as its new master and infused his energy into it with a pleased smile, and while practicing thought they would survive together with this technique for now, and that he would show it even greater arts in the future. The next morning he stepped outside and saw a crowd and noticed the sword demons and the Blood Heaven's Sword Demon and knew they were hostile. Their demonic energy pressed on him and could hurt him if he erred, and they meant to intimidate him. He remembered the meridian strengthening technique and used it, and felt it rise as many martial artists added their energy, and he demanded even more and felt it surge to the final stage. He opened his eyes, looked at the crowd, and walked forward with a small smile, and felt they had acknowledged his strength. Later he stared at the crown chair, and the leader asked if he wanted to see it, and the young master said he did not want to be trapped by it, and the leader teased him and told him to sit. He sat and admitted he felt no excitement, and the leader said he felt the same. The young master wondered what his father felt when he killed so many for that seat if he felt nothing, and the leader explained that the sword demons came on their own and that the young master already knew. The young master confessed that he stayed calm because he refused to be crushed, and that once he walked away his body trembled. The leader asked if they were that frightening, and the young master said no, but that he feared his judgment might have been wrong, and that one mistake could have killed him, and that even surviving might have ruined his chance to be successor, and that such fear came from knowing some moments depended on one choice, and strangely when he thought of that he missed his father, and did not know why. His eyes widened when the leader said they always looked forward and moved ahead, and he thought his father tried to comfort him and smiled and said he thought of something else. He joked about replacing the demon statues with statues of beautiful women and laughed, and then stood and said he was speaking nonsense, and it was time to leave, and told his father to sit and walked down the stairs, and before leaving asked if he was allowed to kill the Blood Heaven Sword Demon. The leader warned that even if the young master could kill the demonic army commander, he still could not face the Blood Heaven Sword Demon. The young master asked why the leader had created conflict between them and said he should take responsibility. The leader answered that he would, and said he would make him leader of the Nirvana Pavilion. The young master thought that position was like the inspector bureau of their cult, and wondered why his father would give it to him. The leader asked what was wrong and reminded him that he wanted discipline and order. The young master could not understand his intention and thought maybe his father was using him to handle matters he had postponed and that he might not care whether he lived or died. He stopped guessing and decided to act based on what he saw and heard. He thought his father left wisdom for his children but also used them when needed, and told him that if he was being sent to kill a cow then he should at least go with a sword in his hand. The leader asked if he wanted more, and the young master requested permission to enter the Heavenly Demon Archives. He knew it held rare and powerful manuals and that few could enter. The leader warned that he should not expect supreme martial arts because even the titles could overwhelm him, and the young master agreed but still wished to try his luck. The leader said he did not know his intentions but allowed him to enter for 7 days, and the young master bowed and thanked him. The scene shifted to the archives, and the young master reflected on his past, and how he once returned to the closed Heavenly Demon Divine Cult to get the secret demonic soul and had been thought dead and unrecognizable. It had taken him long to rise to meet the new leader, and there he heard of the 4 strides of the Wind God, which was known as the greatest mobility art, and had only 4 moves. It had been lost until Ju Bekto rediscovered it and became leader. The young master realized that if it was stored in the archives then people thought it lost because it was not on the shelves and that it had been used to support a shelf. He searched and finally found the manual and felt great excitement. He thought that with 4 steps a warrior could walk across the world and remembered the 4 moves. The shadow step helped avoid being seen and could fool many people with skill. The flicker step helped escape even impossible attacks. The death step let a warrior break through any guard, and the swift step was faster than the word fast could describe. He kept practicing. The scene shifted to 7 days later at the pavilion, and the young master announced his return. The leader asked what he learned, and the young master answered that he learned the 4 strides of the Wind God. The leader dismissed it, and asked if he claimed to have learned the lost shadow step, and the young master said he did not dare lie about that. The leader demanded he show his skill, and the young master asked what he would get in return, and the leader said he would spare his life. The young master smiled, closed his eyes, and his aura flared as he showed the shadow step, and the leader looked genuinely surprised. The leader demanded to know where the young master had learned the 4 strides of the Wind God, and the young master answered that he learned it in the Heavenly Demon Archives. The leader accused him of lying and said it was not there, but the young master stayed firm and said it might have been hidden on another shelf because the leader read so many manuals that he could have missed it. He explained that he found it by chance while looking for other arts. When the leader asked where it had been kept, the young master answered that it was used as support under a crooked shelf and that he discovered it while fixing it. The leader guessed that an important part had been removed and asked how he knew, and the young master said he did not know. The leader admitted it was because he himself would have done the same, and then told him to explain the steps. The young master thought he had expected this moment, and that his goal was not to take his father's position but to kill Wamugi, and save his father and all in the pavilion, and to give his father time to travel and enjoy life. Teaching him the art was no problem, but he refused and said nothing in the world was free. The leader reminded him that he once taught him for free, and the young master answered that it had been paid with liquor. The leader scolded him for holding back and called him bold, and the young master smiled and said he waited until he reached this level. The leader asked if he wanted anything else, and the young master requested the Heavenly Demon Defense Art, and thought it would protect his body and give him another life. The leader shouted that it was impossible because only the Heavenly Demon or successor could learn it, and the young master answered that it could be taught in secret and bowed and said he would leave and asked his father to think about it. The leader replied that the 4 strides must be taught first, and the young master felt his father truly meant to teach him and agreed and asked if he could teach it now. The leader mocked him for not being suspicious and warned he might not teach later, and the young master answered that his father would never embarrass himself in front of his own son. The leader told him to show the steps, and the young master bowed and explained them carefully. The leader practiced and opened his eyes, already moving in many places, and the young master saw that his father's style was different from his own and thought it came from his unique interpretation. The leader praised it as a very good art, and the young master thought his regression brought great change, and wondered if Wamugi could still defeat his father after learning it. The leader then said he would teach the heavenly demon defense art, and would only say it once, and the young master answered gladly. Outside, Leon shouted angrily, wanting to defend him, but the young master stopped her, and told her his father had been the one who hit him, and he felt happy that he learned the art, and even happier that they shared a secret. The leader flicked his head and warned him not to get cheeky. The young master then asked Leon why she was not attacking, and she answered that she protected, not attacked, and he thought she had never joked like that before. He told her he could not fix the side effects yet but promised to remove them soon, and asked her to wait a little longer. The young master told Leon that he had warned the cult leader that the cult must change, and that people should no longer hurt themselves for others. He said people like her should not have to do things they did not want to do. Her eyes widened, and the young master shouted for her to listen. She bowed and answered yes. He then told her that she was fired as his guard warrior, and she was shocked. He explained that she was chosen to lead a new unit called the Phantom Shadow Corps. She said such a group did not exist. He told her he would create it, and it would answer to him alone. She realized he was giving her command of a unit that did not yet exist. He asked once more if she would accept for his sake, and she answered proudly that she accepted. The scene shifted to the city, and the young master thought that building a unit that served him directly would be hard because it required great capital. A man shouted that his name was Yang Dang, and that he led the mission. He warned that the mission was dangerous, and that fools would die by his hand. He then spoke to the young master, and questioned his skill. The young master answered that Yang would know if he could cut him. Yang warned him not to act arrogant, and reminded him that arrogance would cost his head in this world. The young master promised to follow orders and said he was satisfied as long as he was paid. Yang warned that he would watch him closely. The young master looked at the mother and child they protected and thought their deaths in his previous life must be prevented. They traveled on horseback, and Yang ordered a rest and told them to eat. At night, Yang gave them beef jerky, and the young master remembered that the mother and child had been ambushed before and never found. Suddenly men coughed blood, and the young master realized it was poison, and wondered why he felt nothing. He understood Yang must have poisoned the food and said he had not eaten any. Yang drew his sword and mocked him. The young master could not believe a leader would poison his own men and said it was a pathetic life to kill comrades for money. Yang smirked and said he would use the money for drink and women. The young master could not accept that so many deaths were for such things. Yang told him to mind his own life. A group arrived and warned that it was over. The young master felt they were strong. Yang shouted at the woman to come out, or he would burn the carriage. She stepped out with her child. A man accused the young master of failing to find him. The woman begged warrior Quan to spare her child. Quan agreed out of old relation and then mocked her and told her she should beg instead of acting proud. The child looked at him with tears. The woman offered 10 times the money, and Quan refused and said her father was already caught. She gasped. Quan then asked who the young master was, and the young master answered that he was only paid to escort them. Quan questioned Yang and asked if the young master was his subordinate. Yang said he was just a vagrant and that he would deal with him now. Quan ordered Yang to get rid of him. The young master warned that they were street thugs who would betray their own master and would not get their reward because they would kill their employer to hide their crime. He spoke calmly even with the child present. Quan grew angry and called him crazy and ordered him killed first. The young master pointed out that first meant Yang would be next. Before Yang could act, Quan stabbed him and Yang fell. Quan cursed his own man for being careless and said he should not have trusted a vagrant. The young master thought this was the fate of those who betrayed others for money. Quan shouted in anger and demanded that they stop listening to the young master's words. The young master told the woman to cover the eyes and ears of the child, and she obeyed. When a man rushed toward him, the young master used the death step of the 4 strides of the wind god and appeared in front of them instantly. Quan was shocked and demanded to know who he was. The young master answered calmly and asked the same of him. The woman then revealed that Quan Wan was one of the vassals who protected her household, and that she was Jiam Seon, daughter of the Golden Manor Master. The young master thought that this was why he had hidden his identity and joined as a vagrant warrior. Her father was Jiama Su, one of the richest and most powerful merchants in the Central Plains and master of the Golden Manor. There had been a tragedy where his trusted vassal betrayed him and both he and his daughter died. Quan rushed forward, but the young master struck first and cut his neck. Her eyes widened in shock. The young master explained that these scum always attacked when one looked away. Jiam Seian begged him to help them and asked to hire him. The young master said that now the situation was different and his price was much higher. She assured him that they would pay whatever it took and begged him to save her father. The young master told her to follow him. The scene shifted to the men who had been hunting them. One laughed and claimed their 10-year plan had succeeded and then asked where Quan One was. The young master answered that everyone had died except him. They were shocked and demanded to know who killed him. The young master answered that it was a mysterious young and handsome martial master. The man shouted in fury that he should not praise his enemy. When the young master stayed silent, the man suddenly pointed at him and accused him of being the one who killed Quan One. The young master told the man that he had a good eye for people. The man warned that after saving the woman and child he should have run away instead of returning to the enemy camp. The young master mocked him and asked where the tiger was, saying all he saw were dogs that bit the hands that raised them. The man realized that the young master had killed Quan One and yet walked calmly into their base without fear, proving he was no ordinary man. He invited him inside to talk over drink and offered good liquor despite the situation. The young master refused politely and said he would not go easy on him even if he acted kind. The man shouted to kill him and his men rushed forward, but the young master cut them down with swift blows and stood victorious. The man, shaken, demanded to know who he was. The young master answered that he was no one, only a hero swordsman who saw a chance to earn heavy money. The man then asked how much money would make him leave. The young master pointed out that the man was already rich and questioned why he would betray and steal when he could have used his own wealth. Another man placed a sword on Jiam's father's neck and ordered him to drop his weapon. She screamed in fear. The man threatened to kill her father if he did not obey. The young master raised his sword and drew a golden line across the ground that sliced through the attacker. He used the fourth form of the soaring sword art called Flaming Heavens. The remaining man stood shocked, and the young master calmly asked what he had been saying. The young master stood firm and told the man he did not care about waiting and that the man should come if he did not want to die. The man thought the young master had used all his energy and attacked with confidence, but every strike was blocked with ease. He tried harder and still nothing changed, and he grew shocked to see the young master calm and steady. When he pushed his power to the limit, the young master pierced his chest and told him he was pathetic and should have trained instead of chasing greed. He said a man meant to protect the Golden Manor should not have lived like that, and that he could try being a merchant in his next life if he wanted wealth. Later the master thanked the young master with deep gratitude and said he would never forget the help that saved his family. He asked for his name, but the young master said he was only a passing vagrant. The master said even a vagrant king could not have defeated those enemies so easily, but the young master said he was only being flattered. Jiam reminded her master about the reward, and the master approved and told the young master that if he needed money he had come to the right place. The young master thought this was the reason he had disguised himself. The master said they wished they could give him everything, but that was not realistic, and the young master said he would not ask for something so excessive. The master said it would be good to choose an amount, but it was better for the young master to take only what he could carry on his own and that he could not use carts or helpers but could rely on his inner energy. The young master said he would be able to carry a lot, and the master said he deserved it for saving their lives. The young master thanked him as the master opened the door and let him inside. While he entered, Jiam worried that someone with such skill might take more than expected and wondered if that was all right. The master said nothing inside was more precious than their lives and that he only cared about her and his granddaughter being safe. Jiam became flustered, and the master said the young man was no ordinary person. Jiam agreed and said he was clearly hiding great skill behind his young look. The master said it was not only his martial arts, but also the strange air around him, and that he had never met someone so young and unusual. He said money could always be earned again, but meeting someone like this might never happen, and it was fine if the young master took a lot because it would strengthen their bond. Later the young master returned to his clan and thought about what he had gained. He sold the gold and treasures in many cities because no single shop could buy everything, and he earned 38 million yang, enough to build the foundation of his squad. He thought of his father who handled life and death decisions and wondered if his father was truly satisfied or also wished to give up the position of heavenly demon. His father then asked if he had gone outside, and the young master said he had gone to earn money. His father asked why he needed it, and the young master said he could not rely on his father forever, and would need a large amount for his plans. When asked how he would use it, he said he wanted to form his own private group because each demon supreme had subordinates, and he needed his own people. His father refused and said it was impossible because his brother would also demand the same, and it would divide the family and the cult, and forbade the idea. The young master expected this and handed him a scroll. His father asked why he was giving him money, and the young master said it was his allowance for him. His father said he was already rich, but the young master said he knew he was the richest in the world. He said this was his first allowance as a son to thank him for giving him life and raising him, and that he simply wanted to do it once. He told his father to rest well and walked away, and his father watched him leave with a smile. The scene moved to the Nirvana Pavilion, where Daerong told the young master it was time, and that everyone was waiting. The young master greeted him and said he never expected they would meet again like this, and Daerong admitted he was truly surprised. They walked out together, and the investigators greeted the young master loudly and warmly, and he wondered if Daerong had forced them, but Daerong denied it. Daerong explained that the good atmosphere came from what the young master had shown them, and the young master understood it was because he had avenged them after Go Dang killed one investigator and injured another. The young master had crushed Go Dang and even brought a demonic physician to treat the injured man. Daerong asked him to say a few words, and the young master told them he did not know if they would be happier or more miserable under him, but their hearts would beat faster, and they cheered. Later in a room, the young master felt the atmosphere shift, because Daerong handed him something that felt like a death sentence. Daerong said it was the unfair case he had requested, and the young master asked why it was tied to the Blood Heaven's sword demon again. Daerong said he did not want it either, but it fit the request, and was recent. Leon warned him to hold back because the sword demon had almost exploded before. The young master read the case and saw the injustice was too great, and told her to cover it if she could, and she said he would have to act. The scene then moved to the entertainment pavilion, where a man drank heavily, and the owner begged him to stop and said he understood, but he was far too drunk. The man kept drinking and said he could not stop because the people who put his child in a coma for 10 days were declared innocent. The owner thought the Nirvana Pavilion handled it, but the man said the investigator lied and said it was only sparring, and that the attacker was the son of the 100-sword demon, a powerful leader. He cursed the investigator and said they were worse than the attackers. The owner told him to quiet down, but the man shouted that he did not care, and they could kill him if they wanted. He cried and said if his son did not wake, his wife would die, and he would kill the culprit then himself. Another swordsman stepped in and mocked him and asked who he thought he was to threaten someone else's child. The man shouted for his son back and demanded an apology, and the swordsman gave a shallow one and said it was enough. The man grew angry and drew his sword, but the swordsman punched him and threw him down, and told everyone that the man attacked first, and they nodded in fear. The swordsman beat him more and insulted him, and blamed his son for acting righteous. The man screamed that he had confessed to attacking his own son, and the swordsman pretended not to know and asked the crowd if they heard anything, and they stayed silent, and he smirked and mocked him. The man broke down in tears and the others laughed, and it was then that the young master arrived. The swordsman shouted and demanded to know who had spoken, and the young master answered calmly, and told him it was rude to speak without knowing who he faced, and mocked how poorly he must have been raised. The swordsman tried to act polite but soon insulted him again, and said he must have a death wish for interfering, and the young master smiled and said he was bold only because he was the son of the 100-sword demon, which showed how strong his father's reputation was. Someone recognized him and whispered that the second young master was there, and the young master told them to relax and said he was there as the Nirvana Pavilion master, and Leon said this should make the swordsman more nervous. The swordsman quickly apologized and said he had not recognized him and was young and ignorant, and the young master said he did not seem young from his behavior, and the swordsman shouted that he was ignorant and acted humble, and the young master thought he was smart enough to know when to bow. The swordsman tried to leave, but the young master stopped him and said he came to investigate the assaults, and the swordsman argued that the pavilion had already cleared him, and the young master said it would be reinvestigated and listed his crimes and said they were serious enough for at least 20 years in prison. The swordsman shouted that it was unreasonable, and claimed it was only sparring, but the young master reminded him he had confessed and that he had heard it, and the swordsman warned that his father would not allow this, and the young master said his father would be too busy and that he would arrest him as well for working with a corrupt investigator, and the swordsman panicked and shouted that his father would take revenge, and the young master punched him, and he fell. The young master said, threatening. The pavilion master added 10 more years, making it 30, and the swordsman cried and begged for forgiveness, and the young master asked for even one reason to forgive him and said he had never helped anyone, and could not even make up a story, and the swordsman promised to be nice, and the young master slapped him and told him to live that way after his sentence. The young master then looked at the other men, and one begged to be spared and said they only followed orders, and the young master said if they did not confess they would become the scapegoats, and they immediately agreed and spoke, and the young master told the investigator to take them all away. The young master then told the crowd to report any unfairness and promised that no outside power would affect their decisions, and warned that anyone who used their fathers to threaten others would face his own father as well, and the owner laughed in relief. Leon told the grieving father that the demonic physician had examined his son earlier, and the man stepped forward and asked if it was true, and the young master said his son was all that mattered and that he had seen the boy wake up, and the man cried and thanked him again and again, and the young master reminded him that he had given his life to the cult, so it was natural for them to protect him, and the man held his hand and sobbed, and the young master told him the cult was thankful for his loyalty. The young master thought opposition would come from the Blood Heaven's sword demon, but it came from inside the Nirvana Pavilion instead. Senior investigator Gok Myung approached and apologized for not visiting, and the young master asked why they had all come, and the investigator said they feared reopening a closed case would crush their morale and authority, and the young master asked if everyone agreed, and they shouted that they did, but he said he did not agree and that the Yang Ho incident had truly harmed their authority. When Gok Myung asked what he meant, the young master reminded him that Yang Ho had confessed in front of everyone, and the investigator admitted he knew, and the young master asked why he still argued, and Gok Myung said principles mattered even if it made him seem old-fashioned. The young master told them to choose a side, and Daerong stepped forward and said a new investigation was needed, and another investigator, Ik Ho, also stepped forward and thanked the young master, and said he had recovered. The young master then called DONGHUA and reminded him he had handled the case, and Zhang insisted he had done his best, and the young master calmly asked if he had taken bribes, and Gok Myung shouted, but the young master silenced him and asked again, and Zhang swore he had not, and the young master said he had already investigated and confirmed it. Gok Myung then questioned whether he could investigate their own people, and the young master said it was under special authority, and asked Zhang why he had covered up the case, and Zhang denied it. And the young master asked if he had been threatened through his younger sister, and explained that Zhang was clean with no flaw except this, and Gok Myung pressed him, and Zhang said nothing, and the young master understood why Gok Myung had brought everyone. The young master told Zhang not to worry about his sister, and said he had already sent warriors to guard her, and Zhang asked if he meant it, and when the young master nodded, tears filled his eyes, and he knelt and admitted his crime, and the young master reminded him he should have known better even under threat, and Zhang accepted any punishment. The young master told him to rise and said he would not have forgiven this after becoming master, but would make an exception now, and warned him to rebuild his incorruptible character, and Zhang thanked him. The young master then told all the investigators that he now saw their families as his own and promised to crush anyone who harmed them, and said the pavilion would no longer bow to outside power, and in return he would protect them as long as they reported threats, and asked them to trust him, and even promised to beg his father if needed, and told them to report any outside influence, and he would let them work proudly without fear. The young master said he wanted true safety for his family and the Nirvana Pavilion so justice could work again. He believed anyone who committed a crime should face punishment, even people from the Heavenly Demon Pavilion. He said even the cult leader would not escape judgment. He feared not the demon supremes but a future where the pavilion became powerless, and where the guilty walked free while the weak stayed unprotected. A woman investigator stepped forward and said she wished to follow the will of the pavilion master. He told her he needed her experience to make his resolve real. He raised his hand to the special investigator and asked for help, and the special investigator thanked him with wide eyes. The young master ordered investigator Seo to take the enforcement warriors and arrest Yang Tae, the 100-sword demon. The special investigator warned that Yang would not allow an arrest, and that he commanded 100-sword demons. The young master said Yang could do as he wished, and that refusing the order would count as mutiny. Later the young master sat in front of Yang Tae. He told him to address him as the Nirvana Pavilion Master. Yang asked why the summons mentioned mutiny. The young master said it was the only way to make him appear. Yang apologized and said he had his pride before his men. The young master said the case started from children playing. Yang smiled and tried to bribe him by saying the pavilion would need outside support and funds. He said the young master would need their help to become the official successor since everyone supported the first young master. The young master politely said he would appreciate help. Yang praised him and tried to leave, thinking the matter was finished. The young master asked where he was going and said he could only help after coming out of jail. Yang said he was joking, but the young master stayed firm. He reminded him that threatening an investigator's family was a serious crime. Yang denied it, but the young master said he had testimony, and that the rules gave more weight to a Nirvana Pavilion warrior. He told Yang that if he confessed he would get 10 years and if he refused he would get 20 years. Yang asked if he had gone insane. The young master said if acting crazy was needed then he would do it. Yang asked why he was doing this. The young master said Yang's son had beaten his friend for years and almost killed him, and Yang had tried to hide it. Yang shouted that a storage guard could not be compared to them and said they should be treated as superiors. He said the pavilion had always ignored matters like this. The young master said things would not continue that way. Yang warned that the Demon Supreme would not stay silent. The young master said the Demon Supreme had done nothing when he killed the army commander, so he would not act for Yang. Yang smashed the table and the young master asked if he planned to threaten his family too. He told him to confess while he still had time. As he walked away, he thought the fall of the demonic cult was never about Wamugi. A simple 100-sword demon dared to threaten a pavilion investigator. Their order had fallen too low. When he stepped outside, he saw the Blade Man with a cup who greeted him and asked if he should now call him the Nirvana Pavilion Master. The Blade Man invited the young master to sit and drink. He said he had warned him before that nothing good came from meeting him too often. The young master replied that he never sought these meetings. The Blade Man frowned and drank. He admitted he had started feeling something new toward him. He said that when the young master won the fight and made his wish, he had shouted in his mind that it was the right choice. The young master agreed the wish had been good. The Blade Man said that from that day the young master made his blade cry. The young master asked how it could be crying for him, and said it was more like lamenting. He said the disciple who poisoned him, the disciple who shamed his subordinate, the brother who used the army for his own gain, and the man who threatened an investigator showed how low the people around him had fallen. The Blade Man said he was wrong and that the people around him matched him because that was his level. The young master thought he was a difficult man who did not care for fame like prideful men. The Blade Man demanded the release of the 100-sword demon and said morale had fallen to the ground. The young master said he would release him only if he was proven innocent. Mana burst from the Blade Man and the young master felt its crushing force. He understood why his father had said the time was not right. The Blade Man said he wanted to give advice. The young master told him to stop and ask his favor properly. Silence filled the room until the Blade Man admitted few spoke to him in such a direct way. The young master warned him and said stagnant water always rotted. He said people stayed in rotten places because they became used to them. He told him to use this chance to release the rotten water because the man he was protecting was not worth it. The Blade Man drank and asked if he would accept a drink from him. The young master held the cup. He said he would release the rotten water but wanted him to become his water in return. The young master wondered if he truly meant that. The Blade Man told him to drink if he intended to become the heavenly demon and said he would become his backer. The young master was shocked because everyone knew he supported the older brother. When he asked about it, the Blade Man said he had not known how bold he was back then. The young master thought he was insane. He had killed his brother, crippled his disciple, and imprisoned his subordinate, yet he still wanted to back him. He reminded him he had killed his brother. The Blade Man said blood meant little once people left their parents. He said people suffered more from small wounds than distant losses. He said he had never fully chosen the older brother, and could change sides at any time. The young master said having him would mean having an entire army. He asked why he was chosen now. The Blade Man said he saw fearless madness in him, and wanted to bet his fate on it. He said he wanted to devour that madness. The young master knew this was a trick to sway younger men. He placed the cup down, and said he was thankful but he had duties. He asked what his father would think if he left his responsibilities for politics. The Blade Man asked what would happen if he worked well in the pavilion. He said staying there forever would make him rot. He said the only path was becoming the heir and that working with him would draw the cult leader's eyes. The young master knew he was not wrong, but he also knew his father wished to fix the hierarchy. He asked for time and said he would drink once he chose. The Blade Man agreed and said it would be foolish to drink only because he asked. He rose and drew his sword and said he would hear the answer tomorrow. He suddenly slashed, but the young master blocked it. The young master said he would answer in 5 days. The Blade Man said 3 days and flew into the sky. The young master stood alone with his hurting hand. The ground was full of men training hard while Jang stood with his arms crossed and pushed them to keep going. He told them this was normal training for the demonic army and that they must handle it. He reminded them that even if family or friends betrayed them, their hard work would never betray them. Investigator Darong joked beside the young master that Jang spoke like a husband even though he was not married yet. Darong then asked how the young master made the Southern Blade House issue an official apology, and became nervous when the young master told him to ask them himself. The young master reassured him and thought of the Blade Man waiting for his reply. He then ordered Darong to send Yante and his son to a prison where they would have little contact with others, and Darong agreed. As the young master walked, he thought that without his action those men would have harmed more people and that he would not allow such people to cause more damage. The scene moved to the demonic village where the young master confirmed that a building was the Nirvana Pavilion branch, and told the villagers to report any abuse by cult warriors here. When they could not answer what they usually did, he knew they had suffered in silence, and explained that this branch would take such reports without fear. He warned that anyone who harmed a person for making a report would be executed, and the villager felt shocked and promised to spread the word. Later that night the young master walked alone and felt this was the beginning of his plan to protect villagers and all weak people. He wanted everyone to learn that every life mattered, and he resolved to follow that belief. He then saw the Blade Man waiting and joined him for a drink. The young master joked that he wanted the demonic army as a snack, and the Blade Man said the world did not work that way. The Blade Man then revealed he had waited 3 days and suddenly became angry and attacked. The young master blocked every strike and held firm while the Blade Man admired his skill and admitted that taking his head would not be easy. The young master wanted to test the 4 strides of the Wind God against the Blade Man and wondered if the death step might work, but he knew his inner energy was not enough yet. He saw no need to risk a deadly fight when time was on his side and called for the demonic army. The Blade Man asked who should be made commander since the young master could not take the role. The young master chose Jang Ho, and the Blade Man warned him that Jang was already on his side and that greed could lead to death. The young master reminded him that it was the Blade Man who spoke of devouring everything and who suggested they work together. He thought their path was not normal, and only madmen would walk it. He also thought of how the Blade Man had died first among the 8 demon supremes in his previous life and wondered why. The Blade Man became angry and said the young master had ruined the negotiation, then shot into the sky and disappeared. The young master believed he would return since other supremes would still work with him. 2 days later Jang came with wide eyes and said the Blood Heaven Sword Demon had recommended him as commander and asked if the young master was behind it. The young master felt pleased that Jang came to him for answers and admitted he made the request. Jang felt unworthy and spoke of the former commander, but the young master told him to lead the army as he led the 3rd Corps, and he would become the best commander in history. Jang thought this was too much praise but accepted to wait and see, and the young master already planned to make him shine. Later the young master stood before his father, who mocked his clothes and his late visit. The young master joked about his father being attacked for sleeping too early, then spoke of using the Blood Heaven Sword Demon as one of his swords. His father reminded him that he had recently said he wanted to kill him, and warned him that the Blade Man was not easy to control. The young master said he did not want to tame him, only use him until he broke, since the Blade Man was not yet worth keeping. His father asked what he would do if the sword turned on him, and the young master said he would let it try because he would only grow stronger each time, while the Blade Man would end when he broke. His father then demanded to know why he told him all this, and the young master answered that he reported because he received a salary. His father asked if this visit was to make him accept the recommendation, and the young master denied it, and told him to reject it no matter what. His father pressed him, and the young master admitted there was something he wanted from the Blade Man, and to get it the Blade Man could not win this time. His father sighed and told him not to be ridiculous while turning away, and the young master thought that nothing was more ridiculous than the pajamas his father wore. The Blade Man met the cult leader, and said that even though things were not moving as planned, the second young master was standing out within the cult. The leader asked if this was his doing, and the Blade Man bowed and denied it, and said all credit belonged to the leader. He said he had only recently seen the young master's talent, and the leader replied that the young master was still immature. The Blade Man said that was why he wished to raise him higher, and the leader admitted that having his help would be a rare chance for his son. The Blade Man then asked the leader to allow the person he chose to become demonic army commander, but the leader remembered the young master telling him not to accept any recommendation, and said it would be hard to agree. The Blade Man said it was something the young master also wanted, and the leader replied that he must consider his first son's feelings. The Blade Man argued that when supporting someone one must choose only one, but the leader said he did not care and would kill anyone who complained. The Blade Man left thinking it was foolish for the leader to hold back after choosing a side. Later that night the Blade Man sat on the ground and said it seemed the leader valued the young master's older brother more. The young master answered calmly and said that if that was true then their cooperation had no future, and the Blade Man should have filled the gaps if he was losing to his brother. The Blade Man asked if he was saying he was not good enough, and the young master said he was only disappointed. The Blade Man admitted it had been impossible to make Jang Ho commander from the start, and poured a drink, and said there was no need to chase something that would not work. The young master reminded him that he had acted proud when he could not even do one thing for him, and said he should have rejected the idea at once instead of recommending Jang the next day. The young master drew a line with his sword and said the Blade Man once told him it showed how the leader saw him, and he had stayed behind it, but now it felt like the Blade Man spoke of his own place with his father. He said that if it were him he would have made it happen no matter what. The Blade Man challenged him to try and said it should be easy if it was small, but warned it would backfire. The young master saw that the Blade Man was sure the leader would reject again, and asked if this was a bet, and the Blade Man agreed and said if the young master failed he would join him and stop asking for more. The young master then asked what he would get if he succeeded, and the Blade Man said he would do whatever he wanted. The young master asked for an elixir stronger than the demonic essence pill, and the Blade Man shouted that it was almost impossible to find, but the young master stayed calm and said that was why he asked, because their fates were linked and his strength would be the Blade Man's strength. He thought of the heavenly divine pill the Blade Man possessed, and said that if Jang could not be made commander, and if the Blade Man could not get the elixir, then there was no reason to work together. The Blade Man finally agreed and promised to bring it, and the young master accepted and drew his sword, and the Blade Man then rose and vanished. Later in the office, Sema asked if the young master wanted to know the chance of Jang becoming commander, and the young master nodded. Sema said honestly that it was less than 10%, and reminded him that the cult leader had already rejected the recommendation, and never changed his mind without strong cause. The young master said he understood, and then asked what would happen if another demon supreme also recommended Jang, and Sema looked surprised at that thought. Sema believed no other demon supreme would join the recommendation, but Master Geometry said he would try anyway. He suggested dealing with 2 tigers might be easier than 1. Sema asked if the Sword Supreme was the other tiger. Later Bei Zhangtak, the martial artist, insisted a servant was framing him and begged to confront her. Master Geometry asked why she would do that. Bei claimed he did not know and said perhaps someone ordered her or he unknowingly offended her. He swore he had not harmed her. Master Geometry agreed to the meeting and called investigator Seo Derong. Derong entered with a young girl. Master Geometry stopped Bei from shouting and asked the girl if Bei was the one who assaulted her. She nodded. Bei yelled that she was lying and claimed her shaking was from fear of being exposed. Master Geometry said she was shaking because she was scared. Bei demanded to know why Master Geometrical was taking her side. Master Geometry said he heard Bei threaten to go to her hometown and kill her family if she told anyone. Bei acted shocked that the young master believed the girl. 2 more girls then stepped forward. Master Geometry pointed them out, reminding Bei they had all worked for him. Bei remembered them and commented on how much they had grown. Master Geometry confronted Bei about raping children and threatening them this way for years. Bei claimed it was just a drunken mistake and begged for another chance. He argued that no one went to jail for touching servants. Master Geometry agreed that was generally true, and Bei swore he would never do it again. Master Geometry then surprised everyone by saying Bei would not go to jail. As a relieved Bei started to thank him, Master Geometry suddenly cut his throat, killing him instantly. Master Geometry told the terrified girls the man who tortured them was dead and their families were safe. He urged them to remember the moment Bei paid for his crimes, letting that memory cover the bad things, and to remember Bei's final expression. Master Geometry privately felt this was the best revenge he could give the girls. The girls tearfully thanked him. Master Geometry told them not to thank him. He insisted he could punish the man only because they were brave enough to testify, and told them to continue living bravely. As the girls left, Master Geometry mentally challenged his father. He believed his father should be killed by the martial artists he hated if they could not protect children. Leon Shi entered and identified the dead man as a servant of the Northern Heaven Swordsman. She warned Master Geometry that the Flower Sword Supreme would seek revenge. Master Geometry admitted he was afraid he would die before he could eliminate all evil people. Leon Shi commented that the cult was improving under him, and was becoming better than the Murim Alliance. Master Geometry dismissed this, stating that not raping servants was not a good deed but a basic standard they had failed to meet until now. He then loudly ordered Seo Daryong to immediately notify the Sword Supreme that a problem occurred during the investigation, and he would meet her to explain everything. The scene shifted to the Northern Heaven Sword Clan. Master Geometry and an investigator followed the man inside. Someone announced the arrival of the Nirvana Pavilion Master. The Flower Sword Supreme So Yeonrang came out to greet Pavilion Master Geometry. The young master thought the Flower Sword Supreme looked like she was in her 20s even though she was much older. People said she never changed and even seemed to grow younger. He greeted her after a long time. She said she could not get used to being called ma'am and asked him to call her Sword Supreme. He said he could not because of her seniority. She said age did not matter and respect should go to those who deserved it. He agreed and asked her to speak casually to him. She accepted. He introduced the investigator and said he had come to explain the case. The investigator bowed and gave his name. She said there was no need for formality and that if the Nirvana Pavilion decided a crime happened, she accepted it. She said a man who harmed a young maid deserved death and her sword house would not interfere. After the meeting, the investigator thanked the young master for his efforts and said he was changing the cult. The young master said it was only possible because of the investigator's support. She said there was no need to flatter her. He said she still looked young. She laughed and said she focused on martial arts. He remembered her life in the previous regression. After Wamugi killed his father, the cult collapsed and great masters fought for leadership. She became the leader first. Her rule was full of bloodshed. She had strong ambition but weak governance, and survived only 3 years before being killed by her successor. He told her he had a difficult position during a recent incident. He mentioned conflicts with the Southern Sword House to see her reaction because she and the Blood Heaven Sword Demon had a bad relationship. She said she was different from the Sword Demon. He agreed. She said she heard the Sword Demon recommended Jang Ho to become the demonic army commander. He explained that Jang Ho was loyal and one of his own men. She asked how he persuaded the Sword Demon. He said he used the Sword Demon's pride and asked him to think of the cult. He added the Sword Demon did not want to lose him. She asked about another suggestion and he explained it was difficult. She realized he came to her to ask her pride and recommend Jang Ho too. He felt it was time to be honest. She said she understood why he became Nirvana Pavilion Master. She stepped closer and said he had a strange way of moving people. She agreed to recommend Jang Ho. He thanked her and knew she might have supported him to prevent the Sword Demon from having influence. The scene shifted to the cult leader. He said he did not expect the young master to persuade the Flower Sword Supreme. He asked about Jang Ho and Sima said he was exceptional but lacked politics. The leader said the young master acted more by emotion. Sima said that could be both strength and weakness. The leader called it a weakness. The leader said with 2 demon supremes recommending Jang Ho he had to accept. He could not offend both. Jang Ho would become the demonic army commander. Sima bowed and agreed. Jang told the young master he did not know how to repay his kindness. The young master said with Jang's personality he doubted he ever could. He explained he chose Jang for 2 reasons. First, Jang was the most suitable person for the role and the decision was for the cult. Jang said he did not deserve such praise. The young master said the second reason was that he hoped the demonic army would become his strength. He added that their relationship would never be used to force him into anything. Jang said he valued personal ties and reminded the young master of the first time they met. He confessed he was emotional and loyal. He said he already swore loyalty to the young master and would work for the cult, the army, and the young master above all. The young master thought he had gained someone far better than expected and said he would count on him. Jang said he looked forward to working with him. Later the young master told the Blade Man he looked like a guardian statue. The Blade Man asked if he was teasing him. The young master said no. The Blade Man praised him for making Jang Ho the demonic army commander. The young master thanked him and wondered why the Blade Man seemed calm. The Blade Man asked how he persuaded the Sword Supreme. The young master said he would tell only if the Blade Man promised not to get angry. He admitted he had used the Blade Man's pride to provoke the Sword Supreme. The Blade Man said he had been tricked and the Sword Supreme must have had her own reasons. He asked what the young master would do now. The young master said the Blade Man was still his top priority. The Blade Man gave him a small box. Inside was the heavenly divine pill. The young master was shocked. The Blade Man told him he bet the rest of his life on him. The young master thought the Blood Heaven Sword Demon had shown his strongest card. He thanked him and said he would consume the elixir immediately, and asked him to guard him. The Blade Man was shocked, but the young master said he trusted him. He explained that if the pill were poisoned he would have to obey anyway. The Blade Man asked what he would do if he was wrong. The young master said he would think about it later. He raised the pill to his mouth and consumed it. Energy burst around him and sweat covered his face. After some time he opened his eyes. The young master felt his energy surge and knew the heavenly divine pill had strengthened him greatly. The Blade Man asked about the taste, and he said it was like honey, and the most delicious thing he had eaten. The Blade Man regretted not taking it himself. The young master smiled and said he had digested it better and felt his energy overflowing. He knew he would no longer lose to the Blade Man from lack of energy. The Blade Man wondered who he really was to move him enough to give the pill. Manna burst around the young master, as he said he was someone who would eventually lead him if the Blade Man lived long enough to see it. The Blade Man watched quietly. The young master asked about his ultimate goal. The Blade Man said he only wanted to keep living as he had. The young master asked why he was so passionate for that. The Blade Man said he was glad he had seemed like a young man with fire in his heart. The young master understood that ambition fades with time. He asked the Blade Man to pour him liquor. The Blade Man reminded him he had lost the bet. The young master said giving the heavenly divine pill had already won the real bet and accepted the drink. He thought he would make the Blade Man one of his own people. The Blade Man poured another cup and they agreed to work together. The young master noted that even though the Blade Man laughed freely, his heart was still closed. He sensed only when that door opened would their fate be decided. Later the young master practiced with his sword and felt much stronger. His attacks were faster, and he felt ready to face demon supremes, though he still wanted more energy. His father noticed, and he explained he had received the heavenly divine pill from the Blood Heaven Sword Demon. His father was not surprised and said he already knew, having given the pill to the Sword Demon long ago. The young master realized the Sword Demon had been right before. He explained he had offered himself in the bet, and joked that he would take advantage of all 8 demon supremes. His father admitted he believed the young master might actually do it, and told him to continue training. The young master thanked his father for helping make Jang Ho the demonic army commander, but his father said it was because 2 demon supremes recommended him. The young master said he wanted to be happy so others and the cult could be happier. His father warned that walking this path meant forgetting happiness. The young master refused and promised himself he would be happy even while walking this path. In the flowery field, the Flower Sword Supreme admired the blooming flowers and teased the young master that beauty with age would not suit him. The young master thought growing older made life more complicated. He thanked her for her help and offered her liquor, but she politely declined, saying she had quit drinking. He felt embarrassed and apologized, thinking his small gestures still showed respect. He reflected that small gestures were important for building trust. Curious about how to repay her, he asked if she wanted anything in return. She told him to cut ties with the Blood Heaven Sword Demon. The young master noted that her words matched the Sword Demon's predictions and asked why she advised that. She explained that their ideals were very different. The Sword Demon hated rules and freedom constraints, while the young master wanted order and discipline in the cult. He said he could not follow her advice because the Sword Demon had given him a precious gift. He realized he needed to share the gift with her, as he wanted both the Sword Demon and the Flower Sword Supreme as allies. When she asked about the gift, he hesitated but then told her it was the heavenly divine pill. She was surprised and asked if the greedy old man had really given it to him. He nodded and said it seemed the Sword Demon valued him more than the pill. He thanked her again for her help and promised to assist her if needed. Before leaving, she asked what kind of person the Sword Demon seemed to him. He said the Sword Demon was bad-tempered, violent, and always did what he wanted. At first, he disliked him, but over time he had seen some good in him. She asked if it was only because of the pill, and he admitted it played a part. She warned him that despite this, the Sword Demon was not someone he should work with. She said if he wanted her continued help, he must cut ties. The young master challenged her and asked her to prove she could help him more than the Sword Demon. He said he needed a reason to sever ties because of the pill. She argued it was for the good of the cult, but he refused and said he despised anyone buying loyalty with dreams, ideals, or gifts. He asked her to show him something more valuable than the heavenly divine pill. He realized even she seemed unsure. The Flower Sword Supreme asked what he wanted. He clenched his fist and said he needed nothing for now. He thought she would interpret his words as reliance on the sword demon and become impatient. He bowed and thanked her for her help and walked away with a smile, satisfied his words had an effect. Later that night, the blade man asked what she had said. The young master explained she told him to cut ties because their ideals were too different and the sword demon was too free-spirited. The blade man called it nonsense and asked what he would do. The young master said he would work with whoever gave him the most benefit and smiled, confident she could not offer more than the heavenly divine pill. The blade man warned she might try to destroy him. The young master asked why their relationship was strained, though he already knew, and the blade man said reasons were not needed to hate someone. To end on a good note, the young master suggested getting a drink. He said it was important to show disappointment and talk when upset. He offered to buy the drinks. The blade man flew toward the demonic village, shouting he would wait there, leaving the young master alone with his thoughts and plans. At the pleasure bar, the blade man said he expected the young master to take him to a courtesan house even though he disliked such places. The young master said it was surprising because his late brother had liked them. The blade man told him not to mention his brother because it ruined the mood. The young master thought he had mentioned his brother on purpose to prevent the blade man's old wound from festering. The bar owner welcomed them warmly and said it was an honor to serve them. The young master said they came because the food and liquor were good. The owner thanked him. The blade man said he was too friendly. The young master said kindness caused no harm. The blade man argued emotions caused trouble and asked if food tasted better when made kindly or under threat. He said the young master's brother had an advantage in that. The young master admitted life might be easier without emotion, but he refused to live like that. He said food tasted better when made by someone happy. The blade man warned others might demand favors later if treated kindly. The young master said the same person might return kindness many times and it could save his life. The blade man said they would see. The young master said the blade man was actually more emotional than him. The blade man called him blind and terrible at judging people. The young master thought he was right because the blade man had shown more emotion than usual. The young master told him to manage his disciples or they would clash with the Nirvana pavilion. The blade man said he was arrogant. The young master said he was the arrogant one. The blade man shouted in protest. The young master accused him of looking down on the cult and his father and acting as if nothing mattered. Mana burst around the blade man and the table and plates shattered. He shouted that the young master was beyond arrogant and wanted to beat him to death. He demanded new liquor and food. The young master stood, apologized, and paid for the damage. He offered extra to cover all losses and asked for enough food and drink to fill the table. The owner accepted and hurried away. The blade man asked if the young master really wanted him to act like that. The young master said even if he wanted to, he should not destroy things. The blade man asked if he was teaching a demon supreme to be kind. The young master said he wanted a path where people did not destroy a restaurant when upset. The blade man shouted in disbelief. The young master told him to stop yelling and sit down. The blade man clenched his teeth, sat back, and called him an arrogant brat. He said he was crazy and warned he would kill him if betrayed. The young master asked if he meant it, and the blade man confirmed. The young master asked him to swear loyalty sincerely. He poured a drink and offered it. The blade man held the cup and the young master thought he had agreed in his heart. Later that night the Flower Sword Supreme walked in the field with a subordinate. The subordinate said the young master was drinking with the Blood Heaven Sword Demon and called him arrogant. She told him to be careful with his words. He agreed. She observed the young master was not the same as before. The subordinate said he was like a storm in a teacup. She wondered if the teacup could hold the whole Murim. She noted the old man gave him the heavenly divine pill showing the sword demon saw him as a possible successor. The subordinate asked if she saw the possibility. She thought the young master had shown an unexpected side but not enough to deserve the elixir. She felt annoyed and wondered if she missed something the sword demon noticed. The subordinate bowed and said he had prepared a new man for her to rest. She turned and walked away. The young master entered his father's training hall and saw the ancient cold iron on the wall. He asked about it, but his father dismissed the question and told him to practice the 4 strides of the wind god. Mana flowed around him as he moved and he noticed the technique had many variations. He observed that his movements changed depending on his understanding. After finishing, he wondered if he had done it correctly. His father asked if he had reached that level and seemed to acknowledge his skill. They discussed martial arts and his father listened, shared opinions, and accepted some of his ideas. He advised putting more strength into the right foot. The young master felt surprised at how free and rational his father was. His father asked him to close his eyes and shared what he had learned. The young master observed and felt his own skill had improved. He thanked his father and promised to repay him with more allowance. His father told him to eat first. The young master noticed it was unusual for his father to invite someone to eat with him. At the table, his father said there was always more food if needed. He realized his father must find him quieter than before. He reflected that he had never thought about eating with his father before his regression, but now he wanted to. His father asked if the food was good. He joked about trading cooks, but his father refused. His father asked why he came. The young master said he had a favor and wanted to involve another family member. His father thought it was about marriage, but he explained he wanted to teach Lee on the soaring sword art. His father questioned giving a blood relative skill to a bodyguard. The young master explained Leon was important and had great potential. He said the art would become part of the 9 calamities demonic art for the successor, not just a relative. He felt Leon deserved it, and it would make her stronger. His father said he was confident and allowed it, but asked the young master to promise that next time he decided to kill a demon supreme, he would tell him first. The young master agreed. Later, Leon entered the room, and he called her the Phantom Shadow Corps leader. He told her that he would be teaching her a new martial art, the soaring sword art. She was shocked and protested that it could only be taught to the blood relatives of the heavenly demon. He told her to stop talking and explained that he already had his father's permission. He said she needed to learn a martial art of that level to become the Phantom Shadow Corps leader, and that she was basically like his blood relative. She looked at him with emotional eyes and asked how she could ever learn it. He stepped forward, placed his hands on her shoulders, and told her she had always been important to him. She began to cry from emotion. The young master spent time teaching Leon, handling Nirvana Pavilion duties, and training himself. He noticed that Leon learned the soaring sword art very quickly, and her talent was greater than he expected. He was surprised by her hard work and rapid progress. He also realized he could learn through teaching, which felt meaningful since he had never taught anyone before. At the Nirvana Pavilion, the young master gathered the investigators and wanted to boost their spirits. He told Seo Derong to open a box. Derong found money inside, and the young master said it was a special gift for everyone. He divided the money among them and explained it was to ensure the pavilion would not be influenced by outside pressures. He told them not to accept bribes and offered to advance their salary or lend money if needed. The investigators agreed and thanked him. Later in the hallway, Derong asked how the young master had known that Iko needed money. The young master said he did not know, but Derong insisted it was important because it built loyalty. The young master smiled and said such acts were just tricks to make a good impression. The investigator replied that the world could make people act without tricks. The young master stayed silent as Derong bowed and left. At the Southern Sword House, the Blade Man asked why the second young master had come. The young master told him he was not there to punish him and held out a box. The Blade Man opened it and saw the top-quality blood poison pearl. The young master said it was a birthday gift. The Blade Man was surprised and said he had not celebrated in years. The young master joked about knowing everything through the Nirvana Pavilion. He congratulated the Blade Man again and left, asking him to meet later at the pleasure bar. The Blade Man looked at the box and murmured that it was a birthday gift. That evening, the young master walked into the grounds and the Flower Sword Supreme greeted him. She said he must have worked hard and told him to drink something before leaving. The young master looked at her calmly. The young master sat in front of her and reminded her she did not drink liquor. She said the liquor was for him, and he drank it. She asked if it could be poisoned, and he said he had countermeasures and thought about using the blood poison pearl. She noticed the pearl was top quality. He said he knew she was not fully friendly and would not drink carelessly. She asked if he used the pearl with the sword demon, and he said he did not. She asked why he trusted the sword demon but not her. He said many things had happened before his first drink with the sword demon. He realized she had recommended Jang Ho to push him away from the sword demon. He said he wanted to build history with her to one day drink what she offered without the pearl. She said only parents helped without conditions. He told her he would drink at the entertainment pavilion later, and she could join if she wished. She walked away. The young master later saw his father on a rooftop and wondered why he was there. His father said he came to see how he was living. The young master thought about how his father had never visited before and how many first experiences they were sharing. He asked if his father wanted to come inside, but his father refused. The young master offered a chair, but his father said he had sat enough. The young master mentioned the demon physician's advice that sitting too long shortened life. His father asked if he wanted to live long, and he said yes, he had many things to try. He asked if his father wanted anything besides being the heavenly demon, and his father said no. The young master said he wished to visit the central plains with him to see places and people, and thought the snowy mountains were refreshing in summer. Later at the pleasure bar, the owner told him to enjoy the food and he thanked him. The owner said he should be thankful because the Nirvana Pavilion branch reduced troublemakers and unpaid tabs. The young master was glad to hear that. The owner said many people had received help thanks to him. The Blade Man arrived and said the young master was popular. The young master said the Demon Supreme should drink in peace without worry. The Blade Man asked why he lied, and he said it was harmless to keep customers comfortable. The Blade Man said they could leave if they did not like it. The young master told him to compensate, send them elsewhere, and pay the owner for losses. The Blade Man said he was acting kind, and the young master said it was basic manners. The Blade Man asked if a demonic cultist should act that way, and the young master said a demonic cultist was still a person. The Blade Man said he could not tell if the young master belonged to the Murim Alliance or the demonic cult. The young master thought he did not see himself as a demonic cultist since he left the cult young and met many people. He raised a cup and congratulated the Blade Man on his birthday. The Blade Man said celebrating age was pointless, and the young master said birthdays were just an excuse to drink. The Blade Man said he used to like drinking but had cut down, and the young master admitted he liked drinking more than he seemed. The Blade Man then noticed the Flower Sword Supreme enter, and said he had not stopped drinking completely. The Blade Man's eyes widened as the young master welcomed the Flower Sword Supreme and invited her to sit. He said it was the Sword Demon's birthday, and that even with hatred between people, a birthday should be celebrated. She told him to only invite her when he was alone in the future. The Blade Man asked why she was unhappy, and she called him selfish. She mocked him and told him to get drunk and speak nonsense. The young master thought neither would attack since Demon Supremes were forbidden from fighting and asked them to calm down before midnight. She glared and asked why he had started this, and how much he must disdain her. He admitted he needed her, and hoped the two would reconcile. She said if it were easy, they would not still be at odds. He said they had to keep meeting until the grudge faded. She said he was too greedy, and reminded him she would never work with the Sword Demon before walking away. The Blade Man shouted thanks for the birthday wish and left. The young master gave gold coins to the owner, and joked about the Blade Man breaking things. He thought the two Demon Supremes had reacted as expected, but he needed to keep pushing them to release their buried emotions. Later in his bedroom, he woke because someone was calling him. He saw the Flower Sword Supreme waiting outside. She told him he sensed her even without her aura, showing his sharp skills. He said he was a light sleeper. She reminded him he once despised people who won hearts with words and ideals. He agreed. She said she hated those who were good with words but lacked ability. He asked if she saw him that way. She placed her hand on her sword and suggested they find out. She unsheathed it, and he noticed she had no openings even with her back turned. He said he hated people who were strong yet uncaring and used power to oppress. Dust rose as she said she had been too nice, and he had become arrogant. He asked what she would do if he won. She said she would do as he wished and even die if he wanted. He thought she was confident because her martial arts were second only to his father's. She asked what would happen if he lost, and he said he would do as she wished. She told him she wanted him to cut ties with the Sword Demon. He smiled and said she would find out today. He held the black demonic sword which could damage her blade. She said he could strike 3 times first. He accepted and began. He rushed forward with the soaring sword art first form, avoiding the 4 strides of the wind god, and slashed. She blocked it, and her eyes widened. The young master and the Flower Sword Supreme clashed with fierce speed, and she pushed him back again and again. She attacked sharply, but he blocked her strikes many times. She landed on the ground and sent a mana beam at him. He slashed his sword and dodged it, thinking she broke her promise of letting him attack 3 times first. He understood she had no choice because the shifting slash was a technique that could not be stopped by blocking alone. She had to attack in order to defend. He gathered dark mana in his hand with the scaring sword art form Heavenly Slash and sent a dark beam toward her. She raised her sword and blocked it, but her eyes widened in disbelief. When the dust cleared, he stood with his sword pointed at her. She asked what had just happened. He reminded her to be careful because he carried the black demonic sword. She argued that even with the heavenly demon's sword, it was a fight she should not have lost. He told her he had completely mastered the soaring sword art. She refused to believe it. He thought it was natural since the soaring sword art was an advanced martial art similar to what the demon supremes used. He asked if she thought his father would make him the Nirvana Pavilion Master only because he was his son. She said she had taken the heavenly divine pill to make up for her low inner energy. He told her he had won and asked if she acknowledged it. She admitted that if she had known his strength, she would not have lowered her guard. He thought she was right because her trust in him and her promise to let him strike first led to her loss. He asked if she planned to deny her defeat, and warned that breaking her word would haunt her as a coward among the demon supremes. She shouted for him to stop provoking her, and said she would keep her word. She demanded to know what he wanted. He reminded her that she had offered her life if she lost. She asked if he truly wanted her life. He said he did not, thinking he was not as crazy as others claimed. She asked again what he wanted. He apologized sincerely for his disrespect and asked for her forgiveness. She wondered if he was mocking her. He told her he should not have acted so rudely or invited her to that dinner. She asked why he was apologizing after winning. He admitted he wanted to earn her favor and hoped she would support him with sincerity. She asked if he meant support in the fight to become the successor, and said she was disappointed if he thought it would matter. He explained he treated others based on how they treated him. If someone threw sand at him, he would push them into the mud. If someone threw water at him, he would throw something worse. But he told her he never wished to treat her that way because she was the most worthy of respect among the 8 demon supremes and had a noble spirit. She asked if that was truly how he saw her. He confirmed it and left, telling her he would see her next time. As he walked away, he thought about the future she would one day face. Not everything he said was a lie. Those events had not happened yet, and if meeting him could change her fate, then maybe the bloodshed she would cause could disappear. He hoped a new life could bloom for her, and that the wasteland he once saw in her eyes might one day be filled with flowers instead. The next day came, and the Flower Sword Supreme accepted his apology. The young master noticed she looked unwell and wondered if her loss had caused inner turmoil, then thanked her. She openly admitted her defeat and asked to fight again that day. He refused calmly and said he could never win again because her mistake had given him the first move, and without that he would have lost. She insisted that he had mastered the sword art and had enough inner energy to win again. He denied it and said the victory was only rare luck, not skill. She then offered a duel without conditions, saying she would grant any wish if she lost. The young master felt her words were foolish and proud, and he finally understood how such pride led her to rise through bloodshed and later fall. He told her he would never tell anyone about the match and advised her to rest since she looked unwell. When he turned away, she admitted she felt ashamed. He told her she should not, since his win was only luck. She then confessed that her shame came not just from losing but from the words she had spoken about her face, which felt deeply humiliating. He replied with understanding and said that such feelings were natural, and even he would feel the same way. She said that such shame was unacceptable for a sword supreme and claimed it would have been better to be stabbed in the face. She asked if he now understood why she returned and again requested a rematch. He refused and asked her to let him enjoy his single stroke of luck. She then said she had promised to never lose to anyone except one person. The young master was shocked and wondered who that person could be, then asked her directly. She confirmed it was a promise made with the cult leader and warned him not to think disrespectfully of her pure respect. He denied any improper thoughts. She then asked why he respected his father so much and smiled. The young master realized she had used his father as her last move, leaving him no choice, and agreed to fight to honor that promise. She smiled in satisfaction, and he asked if that pleased her. She agreed, and he promised to give the fight everything he had. She drew her sword and said that was exactly what she wanted. They faced each other as she rushed forward, but he dodged her first strike. He slashed while landing, and the battle continued as she attacked again and again, yet every strike was avoided. He countered in return, and she also evaded his attacks as their duel fully began. They rose into the sky and continued their duel. The young master became absorbed in testing their sword skills, caring less about the outcome. He sensed the sword supreme felt the same, as her killing intent faded and she focused on technique. He admired her and felt she deserved her title. They landed, and he admitted he had lost because she never used her killing strike. She said he had done the same. She thanked him as her second master and walked away. The next day, she returned and said she had slept deeply after their duel for the first time in her life. He asked if she usually slept poorly, and she confirmed it. She decided to duel every day for better sleep and asked for one last fight. He smiled, drew his sword, and she did the same as they prepared to fight again. The young master asked the Flower Sword Supreme why she had dodged to the left instead of the right. She explained that moving left limited his options while moving right would have given him more choices. He realized it was because of his center of gravity, and she confirmed it. He noticed she always answered his questions honestly, and he did the same for her. He felt that sincere teaching never caused loss and that he learned more by teaching others. She said she could not remember the last time she had felt so immersed in martial arts, and that it might be her first time. He told her the feeling was even stronger for him. She suggested they begin again, and he agreed. They fought once more, ice fragments flew through the air, and dust rose when their swords clashed. They landed and stood, breathing heavily. She asked if he had any liquor, and he said he did. She wanted to drink with him, and later they sat together sharing liquor. She praised its quality, and he asked if she knew much about drinking. She said she knew well and had often drunk before. She asked what had caused his change in behavior. He explained it was not sudden and that he had been preparing for it for a long time. She asked if he had been hiding his true self, and he admitted it quietly. He said he had been too young before, and if he had shown his real nature, his brother would have killed him. She called him terrifying and said that being with him felt strangely like being with a friend. He noticed her tone had changed and felt she might have seen something from his past. With others, he often acted playful to hide his darkness, but with her he had been completely serious. He said through their swords they had formed a friendship. She said she did not know what kind of relationship they would have in the future, but the duel would stay in her memory. He agreed and said he would never forget it, and thanked her for teaching him. She smiled and questioned if she had truly taught him. He felt he had learned more and through 3 days of dueling had gained deep insight into the soaring sword art. He also broke past the 10-star mastery wall, and began his path toward 12-star mastery. She drew her sword and pointed it at him, and he lightly tapped his sword against hers. He felt they had never properly said goodbye. She turned and walked away, and he felt the final clash of their swords was their farewell and the true end of their duel. Later, she sat alone in her room and reflected on the first day she lost to the young master. Her thoughts had been chaotic, and she had even considered wearing a mask and returning to kill geometrical Muguk. She realized the person she was then and the person she was now were completely different. Her subordinate Wuzhang asked if something was troubling her, but she continued drinking without answering. He found it strange since he had never seen her drink before and wondered if it was related to the second young master. She dismissed it as nothing. He apologized and said he had brought someone new waiting in the secret room. She suddenly shouted and told him to stop bringing men. Wu Zhan was shocked by her formal tone. She said it was something she should have ended long ago and never should have started. She reflected that it began with a single moment of desire but had turned into many times and now it was time to stop. Wu Zhang bowed and said he would send the man back and could arrange it again if she wanted. She firmly refused and said it would never happen again. She ordered him to leave and warned that if he ever touched young men under secrecy, she would kill him herself. He assured her there was no need to worry and left. As he left, he felt confused by her coldness. He believed using men to gain her favor had secured his position and that he would become the next Sword Supreme. He blamed Geometry Muguk, thinking that ever since Geometry Muguk appeared, she had begun to change. Investigators found a dozen buried bodies in the forest, all missing their hearts. A special investigator told the young master, who realized it was the work of a soul art. He remembered rumors that the soul-absorbing Supreme Demon had used such dark techniques and began to suspect they were true. Darong examined the bodies and said they were not martial artists. The young master confirmed they were ordinary people, including men, women, and children. He felt anger rise and thought that while fights between martial artists were cruel, harming ordinary people and children was pure violence. He decided to stop this first, even before pursuing his personal goals. An investigator showed him a ghost fan found near the bodies. This made him more suspicious, but he wondered why evidence had been left behind. He asked about the herb gatherer who discovered the bodies and learned the man had fled in fear. He ordered the area cleaned and decided to go to the West Illusion Fort. Darong asked if he would confront the soul-absorbing Supreme Demon, and the young master confirmed. As he walked away, he felt something was off. He thought the Supreme Demon would have erased all traces of soul arts, yet the bodies were easily found and the fan remained. He sensed someone was trying to guide his thoughts. He suspected Sa Wuzhang, who had died while under a soul-controlling spell trying to kill the Sword Supreme. After his death, it was revealed he had feelings for her, and the recent duel might have provoked him. The young master believed someone wanted him to die fighting the Supreme Demon, or be pulled away from the Sword Supreme. At the West Illusion Fort, the young master felt strong ghost energy. The demonic flowers, statues, and pagodas made the place dangerous. He realized anyone without necromancer training could face unstable inner energy, hallucinations, or even fall to inner demons. He understood the fort itself was a trap. Soon he saw the statue of the soul-absorbing Supreme Demon. He remembered that before his regression, they had no real connection, and later they never interacted, though the Supreme Demon was the last survivor among the 8. He greeted the Supreme Demon, who welcomed him and asked why he had come. The young master sensed the soul-controlling spell was already active and said he was there to investigate an incident. The Supreme Demon praised him, and he replied that his strong will and defense art helped. He explained the strange corpses and the necromancer item found. When the Supreme Demon asked about the item, he called Donghua. He noticed the Supreme Demon did not ask what made the corpses unusual, and he felt the man already knew. Donghua appeared and claimed he lost the ghost fan the day before. The young master threw the fan to him, and Donghua admitted it was his and asked where it had been found. The young master said several corpses were discovered with the fan beside them. Donghua did not ask where the bodies were or how they died. The young master said Donghua needed to be questioned, and he agreed calmly. Later Darong reported Donghua refused to speak and only repeated he lost the fan. The young master realized Nunghaya's loyalty and fear of the Supreme Demon were too strong. Darong said without proof, they could not hold him long. The young master said Donghua was only a subordinate, and to uncover the truth, they needed to arrest the Supreme Demon. Darong warned him to be careful, and the young master said he would arrest anyone in the wrong, even his own father. Darong was shocked but saluted. The young master smiled, and an investigator announced that the cult leader had arrived. Darong looked surprised. Later, the young master asked why his father had come there. His father said he was only passing by, but the young master knew this was not true. His father warned him not to interfere with the soul-absorbing Supreme Demon yet, and said his strength was not enough. The young master said he could kill the man by surprise or even from behind. His father replied that even getting close to him was extremely difficult. The young master asked if the soul-absorbing Supreme Demon was truly that strong. His father said he was both the weakest and the strongest. The young master understood that the Supreme Demon was weak against those immune to soul arts, but terrifying to everyone else. He asked his father to help him reach that level. His father said it was impossible in such a short time. The young master argued that he learned faster than normal, but his father said it still would not be enough. His father explained there were only 2 ways to block the Supreme Demon sorcery. One was mastering the 9 calamities demonic art to a high level. The young master immediately chose this path and refused to hear the other. His father then explained the second way was full mastery of the heavenly demon defense art. Since neither could be achieved quickly, he told the young master to stand down for now. The young master asked if the soul-absorbing Supreme Demon was truly necessary to the cult. His father said that among the 8 Supreme Demons, he was the one most feared by the orthodox sections. The young master asked if this was acceptable even though the man was ripping out living hearts. His father said he had only learned about this recently. The young master realized that even his father could not approve of such acts. However, as cult leader, removing such a powerful figure carried heavy consequences. He decided this was not something he could leave to his father. He declared that he would kill the soul-absorbing Supreme Demon, and said he would be the first of the 8 to die. He remembered that before his regression, this man had survived the longest, but now his fate would change. He explained that this was not blind anger but a clear judgment. He said someone who calmly and repeatedly killed innocent people for power could not be called human. He asked his father to leave this matter to him. Since his father had given him the sword, he wanted to use it without hesitation. He knew his father might not agree with everything, but believed this path was necessary, even if he had to walk part of it alone. His father stood and said there would be no major problems. He said that if the young master was truly capable, he would naturally fill the empty place left behind. The young master understood this as silent support. As his father left, he smiled and felt grateful, knowing they were still walking the same road. The next day at the West Illusion Fort, the young master decided to take a third path to kill the soul-absorbing supreme demon. He knew it would take about 2 months, so he needed to buy time and force the demon to stay quiet. When the supreme demon asked why he had come, the young master said the suspect had been judged innocent due to lack of evidence. He then said he had something important to say. He openly stated that he knew the supreme demon was using soul arts and demanded that he stop. The supreme demon denied everything and mocked him. The young master warned him of death and released his mana, activating the heavenly demon defense art. He then said he would not kill the supreme demon himself. Instead, he would go to his father every morning and demand the execution of a man who tore hearts from the living and shamed the cult. He vowed to repeat this endlessly until one fatal mistake finally sealed the supreme demon fate. The master told the young master to kill him but promised to try convincing him every day until he made a grave mistake. The supreme demon revealed the real world and the young master felt dizzy. The supreme demon said the rumors about him rising as a hidden dragon were true. The young master smiled and said he only wanted to live a long life enjoying the world. The supreme demon praised his thought and said he had spent his life striving to be unkillable. The young master teleported to a grassy ground and admired the martial art. The supreme demon said only he could perform it. The young master thought even the Sky Heaven cult leader could use it, and saw its roots in the blood-sex demonic arts. The supreme demon asked if he wanted to live in this world. The young master said he would learn it if taught. The supreme demon called him devious for seeking ultimate martial arts for free. The young master said it would allow the supreme demon to obtain him too. The supreme demon said he could see through his thoughts, and no one could trick him. The young master asked the supreme demon what he was thinking. The supreme demon guessed he wanted to grab him by the hair and yell at him. The young master corrected him and said he wanted to punish him for killing people and asked if it was a little different. The supreme demon wondered if he wanted to die by his hands because being the cult leader's son was hard. The young master said no and that it was better to be a living third-rate martial artist than the strongest in a dead world, thinking this was what the supreme demon used to say. The supreme demon asked if he was afraid, and the young master admitted he was, which was why he wanted to convince his father instead. The supreme demon laughed and acknowledged his courage and told him to go back. The young master asked him not to cause trouble for his father's sake. The supreme demon warned that if they met again, he would not return alive. Later, at the entertainment pavilion, Darong asked if everything went well. The young master said it either did or did not, and thought the threat would hold for 2 or 3 months. Darong praised him for daring to confront the supreme demon, and said it was meaningful even if he could do nothing more, wishing he could face the supreme demon himself. The young master said he appreciated Darong's support, and that a right-hand man was important. Darong asked if he was the right-hand man, and the young master said Leon was his heart, not his right hand. Darong felt even being the right hand was lacking, and the young master joked that his left hand, the heart, and the left wing were late. Darong asked who the left wing was, and the young master said just someone. Jang arrived and apologized for being late. The young master said he had to call him since it was the first drinking party with all his people and offered him a drink. Jang thanked him, and Darong looked at him. Leon then arrived and apologized, and the young master told her to sit without apologizing. She greeted Jang and Darong, and Jang noticed she seemed different. The young master thought her aura had changed because of her training in the soaring sword art. Lee said she had lost weight from training and wanted a drink. The young master acknowledged her hard work. Darong felt like the only loser, and the young master asked if he wanted to learn martial arts properly. Darong was surprised, and the young master said he could arrange someone to teach him even if he could not make him an official disciple. Later, on the street, people looked surprised, and the Blade Man stepped forward angrily, saying he would not tolerate being summoned at someone else's whim. Late at night, Investigator Darong noticed a storm was coming. The young master told him to stop wasting time and gave him 1 minute to think. He said overthinking would prevent any decision and that after tonight, all offers would be off the table. The young master thought Darong was too young and lacked the relationships and network needed to become the Nirvana Pavilion master. Darong drank quickly, and Leon warned him he was drinking too fast. Darong worried it might be too late at 32. The young master said being late had an advantage because he would try harder and every strike and step would carry more effort and thought. Darong agreed to try, saying he felt persuaded because the young master recommended it. Leon smiled, praising the young master's persuasiveness. Darong admitted he felt regretful because he had worked 10 years as an investigator aiming to become a special investigator. The young master clarified he did not mean quitting but studying martial arts after work. Darong asked if he would work himself to death. The young master said it would let him fulfill the dream he never could before. Darong worried it might be too late and that he would have to bet his whole life on it. The young master told Darong that learning late meant there was no need to rush and that slow effort after work brought the best results. He explained that rushing or having too much free time often led to doubt and defeat, while using small precious moments led to real growth. Darong said he understood and asked who would teach him. Leon became flustered and Zhang looked surprised when the blade man stepped forward. Darong noticed their expressions in confusion. The blade man complained that the young master was getting arrogant for dragging him out again. The young master welcomed him warmly and invited him to sit, saying he called him to drink together. Zhang thanked the blade man for his recommendation, but the blade man said the credit belonged to the young master. The young master said none of it would have been possible without him. The blade man said he only recommended Zhang because he trusted his ability. The young master then asked the blade man to teach Darong martial arts. The blade man reacted harshly and questioned who Darong was. Darong loudly introduced himself in a drunken and exaggerated way. The young master laughed and explained he had drunk too much. The blade man said Darong was lucky to be alive and refused to teach him. The young master insisted Darong was someone they desperately needed and said he wanted him to learn from the best, which was the blade man. The young master argued that he learned faster than normal. The blade man refused to teach Darong because he was not his disciple. The young master told him to make Darong his disciple, saying none of his current disciples were worthy, and asked what he thought of Darong. The blade man said he did not like him. The young master urged him to do something he did not want for once. The blade man repeated that he did not like him, and did not need a reason. The young master said he did not like the blade man either, which surprised them. Darong asked the blade man if he would be happy being forced, and pleaded not to teach him, calling him honorable but cold. The young master said the reason was so Darong could learn martial arts. Darong cried, saying it was not right. The young master asked the blade man to at least teach him half an hour a day after work for a few days or years, and if he still did not like him, they could stop after the first day. The blade man asked if the young master really trusted Darong. The young master said he was trusting him and thought the blade man and Darong were strangely similar, both passionate though slightly off from the mainstream. Darong shouted with teary eyes that he did not want to. The blade man held his sword, but the young master stopped him. Darong suddenly dozed off on the table. The blade man asked what he would get in return for teaching Darong. The young master said he would help resolve a long-standing grudge. The blade man's eyes widened and he sat down. The young master poured him a drink, thinking about whether the Blood Heaven Sword Demon truly wanted to reconcile. They drank together. The blade man asked if the young master was serious, and he confirmed Darong should not learn for free. The blade man asked about the branch office and whether it was really helping his reputation. The young master thought the blade man misunderstood his intentions but smiled and left Darong in his care. The blade man asked what the young master planned to do. He said he would be busy fighting non-human threats, finding his right wing, and pleasing his father. The blade man realized he was the left wing, and the young master offered to switch. The blade man was shocked that he and the Sword Supreme were paired as two wings. The young master reminded him of his own words about devouring everything with madness. The blade man admitted he did not know he was this crazy. The young master said they should go mad together, and asked what he had to lose. The blade man questioned his respect, and the young master said it was because he was a lunatic, and would be away for months, asking him to look after his people. The blade man agreed and drank again, and the young master felt assured by his simple agreement. Darong shouted that he was thirsty and wanted water. The blade man told him it was right next to him. Darong drank from the kettle and held his head, saying his head hurt and swearing never to drink again. He wondered where he was and asked the blade man why he was there. The blade man said it was his room. Darong asked why he was allowed to sleep there. The blade man explained that Darong had insisted on being carried, called him heartless for putting him in the guest room, and had collapsed crying, so he had to endure the urge to kill him. Darong apologized and promised never to drink again. The Blade Man said he did not need to quit drinking, just the drunken antics, and told him to leave. Darong agreed. Later, Darong smiled at a book and asked if the Blade Man had read it. The Blade Man said he hated people touching his things without permission. Darong panicked and dropped the book, apologizing that only a boring part was crumpled and thanking the Blade Man for letting him stay. The Blade Man asked why he liked the book. Darong said he related to the main character who was born into poverty, had a gloomy personality, struggled to fit in, but became a hero. He said he had read it 20 times and always kept it close. The Blade Man asked if the young master would become the successor. Darong nodded, saying he was outstanding and would bring positive change to the cult. The Blade Man asked if he would give his life for him. Darong said never, explaining he was not the type to sacrifice himself for others. The Blade Man told him to wait in the courtyard. Darong worried he might be punished for his answer. On the ground, the Blade Man pierced a sword and told Darong to pick it up. Darong held it and said it was heavy. The Blade Man explained that understanding its weight was the beginning and end of the sword techniques he would teach. Darong said what he was taught sent shivers down his heart. The Blade Man joked it was from drinking too much or a heart condition, then walked upstairs telling him not to be late for training. Darong smiled and promised he would not be late. The scene shifted to Mount Hong, where the young master entered a pleasure bar and recalled that in his past life he had once come here for the Thunder Bell and met a boy who later became a man. A waiter told him there was no space and no vacant rooms because guests were flooding in for the blood god ritual. The young master learned the ritual would be held in 10 days and that all inns were likely full. He thought he had arrived at the perfect time since the ritual happened only once a year. He recalled that only on that day could one obtain a method to suppress the soul-absorbing supreme demon. The sacred treasures, including the Thunder Bell, were kept in a prison made of 10,000-year gold iron where the Sky Heaven cult leader lived and was protected by a guardian spirit in cold iron shackles. Stealing the treasures was nearly impossible, except on the day of the blood god ritual when both the cult leader and the guardian left for the grand martial arena. The young master planned to use that moment to steal the item capable of killing the soul-absorbing supreme demon. Investigator practiced with the sword while the Blade Man instructed him on how to grip and swing it. The Blade Man told him to repeat it 1,000 times. Investigator was shocked at the sudden demand and heavy sword, feeling like his arms would fall off. He sat down, thinking he could be reading comfortably at home, but remembered the young master's advice to give his all since he was starting late. He stood up and completed 1,000 swings, feeling accomplished. The Blade Man said he could quit if it was too hard, but the investigator refused, saying an opportunity like this would not come again. The Blade Man reminded him he would never pass down his martial arts, and the investigator said he was not hoping for that, only wanting the chance to learn and one day tell his child he had learned from the great blood heaven sword demon. The Blade Man asked if he planned to get married, and the investigator said yes, wanting to raise a child and give them the fatherly love he never received. The Blade Man asked what if the investigator's child ended up hating him. The investigator asked if the child could train with the Blade Man instead. The Blade Man shouted for 1,000 more swings, shocking the investigator. The scene shifted to the young master sitting by a campfire in the mountains. He thought about buying ingredients like spirit root grass, poison bellflower, and sandalwood to brew an elixir that could numb the sense of smell, allowing him to move undetected. He planned to train in the heavenly demon defense art while the medicine brewed. Mana burst around him as he practiced, feeling the uniqueness of the art, and hoping to combine it with the 9 calamities demonic art. He remembered looking at the night sky before the regression and wondered if everyone was doing well. The scene shifted to the investigator, who recalled swinging the sword late into the night, and wondered what had happened and where he was. He shouted in confusion about sleeping there again, and walked outside to see the Blade Man practicing with his sword. The investigator noticed with surprise that the Blade Man was swinging the sword in the exact same stance he had taught him yesterday, realizing the training mirrored how the blood heaven sword demon had first learned martial arts. The Blade Man reminded him not to slack off just because the pavilion master was absent. The investigator remembered he was late and hurried off, promising to return that afternoon. The Blade Man told him that being in pain did not make it easier and ordered 2,000 swings again, which the investigator accepted with a smile. The scene shifted to the young master walking and thinking there were 5 days left until the blood god ritual. The medicine he brewed was ready, and he planned to check if the secret passage he discovered before the regression still worked, scouting toward the Sky Heaven cult leader's throne. He opened a stone door and entered a cave, amazed at the well-made hidden passage. He reached the door to the throne room, closed his eyes, and threw his mana inside, sensing an overwhelming presence. He opened his eyes and realized it was the Sky Heaven cult leader. The young master sensed an extraordinary aura near the Thunder Bell and confirmed its location, planning to begin the operation during the Blood God Festival. He sat cross-legged, thinking the 36th strike of the Thunder Bell would be the cue. When the bell struck 36 times, he used the 4 strides of the Wind God Shadow Step and thought it would take about 15 minutes for the Sky Heaven cult leader to return. He touched a statue and thought about the Blood Eye Purification Water, a sacred water passed down among the cult leaders that reveals counter-techniques for blood cult sorcery. He poured the water into his eyes, clenching his teeth as red mana burst out, then closed his eyes, noting there was still enough water remaining so no one would know it had been used. He then used the 4 strides of the Wind God's Swift Step and thought that although he acquired the water quickly because of the soul-absorbing Supreme Demon, it would help him on his journey toward Wamugi even without that. The scene shifted to the Blade Man's room where the young master approached, and teased that the look did not suit him. The Blade Man joked about scolding the guards, but the young master said he came quietly to meet discreetly. The Blade Man asked if he had just returned to the cult, and the young master confirmed, saying he thought of the Blade Man first, and offered a drink he had brought. The Blade Man noted it had been nearly 2 months since he left, and the young master said his swift step had improved during the trip. He asked about Investigator Seo's training, and the Blade Man said he was working surprisingly hard and had a strong heart. The young master remarked that Seo picked his battles wisely. He then asked about the book the Blade Man was reading, and the Blade Man said he used to love reading but had forgotten for a while. The young master asked what he was like when younger, and the Blade Man said he was dark and gloomy. The young master noted the similarity to Investigator Seo. The Blade Man dismissed it as the past and asked if the trip went well, which the young master confirmed. The Blade Man said there would be more trouble soon and assumed the young master went out to cause chaos. The young master denied it, but spoke calmly about liking a bloody peace that comes after crushing everything. He suggested going out together next time, but the Blade Man said he felt more at peace staying in the cult, and warned him to be careful in the succession battle, where one mistake meant the end. The young master asked what he would do if that happened, and the Blade Man said he would switch allegiance to the older brother. The young master called him cold, and the Blade Man replied that wings were useless if the body was dead. The young master thought that the Blade Man truly would act that way. He then asked him to drink together all night. The Blade Man agreed, but questioned where he was going. The young master said he was going to buy more drinks and prepare snacks himself because there was something specific he wanted. As he walked away, he thought about preparing the ultimate dish he had been working on for 2 months and resolved that tonight he would kill the soul-absorbing Supreme Demon. The young master felt angry and thought the demon was arrogant for threatening him. The Supreme Demon moved toward a child and planned to use soul art. The young master suddenly punched him and warned him to stop using that technique. The demon was shocked and recognized the second young master and lost his calm presence. He admitted he had misjudged him and accepted the hit. The young master said this was the demon he wanted to kill and mocked his earlier weak act. When asked how he entered the place, the young master said he simply followed him and believed the demon would not accept the truth. He knew the demon used shadow arts and used special eye purification to see through them and reach him. He said the reason for coming mattered more than the method. The demon denied knowing soul art and claimed the child was an orphan he wanted to teach. The young master called him a coward and accused him of only killing the weak. In the next moment, the young master was sent to a snowy cliff where the demon reminded him that seeing him again meant he would never return to his original world. The young master accused the demon of scaring others because he was afraid himself. The demon praised his spirit and asked if he had come to kill him. The young master confirmed it and denied that his father had sent him. He said if his father wanted the demon dead, he would have come personally. They later sat face to face and agreed to speak honestly before killing each other. The demon claimed that demonic humans stood above the weak and had the right to grow stronger by devouring them. He insisted every choice he made was for the cult. The young master reflected that his past self might have accepted this excuse, but his fate had changed him. He exposed the demon by saying he killed only to extend his own life and would never stop. He realized the demon never sought revenge for the cult leader and instead chose to outlive the other supreme demons. He concluded that the demon had always lived only for himself and had turned into a monster. The demon claimed the young master could not be the real second young master and said no one his age should understand him so well or break through his shadow arts. Demonic energy burst around him as he used a forbidden mind-seizing soul art. The young master realized the technique and pretended to be affected so he could learn the demon's intentions. He introduced himself as Geometrical Muguk and said he had investigated the demon thoroughly. When asked about the cult leader, he denied any involvement, and realized the demon feared his father the most. He said he came to put the demon down, and had told no one about it. The demon smiled and declared that the young master would vanish from his old world. The young master warned him about the consequences of killing him. The demon explained that he would not kill him directly, and that the Blood Heaven's Sword demon would be the one to end him. As demonic power surged again, the young master clenched his teeth. The young master activated the Heavenly Demon Defense Art and formed a shield to block the dark mana. The demon repeatedly ordered him to kill the Blood Heaven's Sword demon. The young master noticed that even with the defense art, the soul-absorbing power was strong and realized the light was the key to breaking it. When the pressure faded, the demon was shocked that the young master woke up on his own. The young master said he had grown attached to the Blood Heaven's Sword demon and did not truly want to kill him. The demon released even stronger dark mana and used a more powerful soul-absorbing art, but it still failed. Confused, the demon demanded an answer, and the young master repeated that their bond protected him. Dark energy surged again and shadows rose from black liquid around them. The young master drew his sword and slashed as the shadows attacked, while realizing the blood eye purification water allowed him to see how to break the sorcery. The demon widened his eyes as the young master mocked him. Heavy rain suddenly fell, and the young master realized falling into the soul-absorbing illusion meant death. He sank into endless water and struggled to swim up while understanding why the soul-absorbing supreme demon was so feared. He realized even the strongest masters would collapse if they failed to find the exit. As he drowned again, he suspected the way out was hidden underwater but found nothing. When he surfaced once more, he noticed a stone and realized it was the place he had stood on before. He grabbed it and understood the exit had been in the most obvious place all along. He struck the stone with his sword and returned to face the demon. He was then sent into a space filled with mirrors showing fragments of his life. One mirror showed an old man on a bed, and he realized it was a false future made by the demon. He reflected on his past sins and accepted that saving others gave meaning to his end. Feeling at peace, he shattered the mirror with his sword and revealed the demon standing behind it. The young master stared at him with sharp and focused eyes. The supreme demon was shocked that the young master solved the mirror trap and explained that breaking the wrong mirror would trap him forever. The young master calmly said it was luck. The demon refused to believe luck alone and accused him of mastering the 9 calamities demonic art and being chosen as a secret successor. The young master knew the demon misunderstood and realized this art was the only way to resist his sorcery along with the eye purification he had used. The demon cursed the cult leader for using his own child as a weapon and accused him of betrayal. The young master questioned this and said his father had respected the demon and hesitated until the end. When asked why he was doing this, the young master explained that he had lived an ordinary life until he was suddenly dragged away and killed without reason. He believed anyone would feel wronged after suffering such an end. The demon said life was never fair and that the weak should become strong. The young master replied that if someone had to bear the grudge, then the demon should carry it all. Dark mana erupted as the demon admitted his desperate will to survive and his hatred toward the cult leader. He revealed that he had fallen into soul arts and even learned dark demonic arts. The young master realized these arts were far more powerful but slowly destroyed those who used them and were forbidden by the cult. He concluded the demon would have died from the side effects even without interference. The demon claimed he suppressed those effects using energy gained from soul arts. The young master understood that soul arts were used to counter the backlash of dark demonic arts. The demon threatened to kill him and later take his father's place. The young master mocked him as a coward who would spend his life hiding his ambition and clinging to survival. He realized that even in his past life the demon had never revealed this dark secret. The demon launched a fierce attack, but the young master blocked it, and realized the fight was only possible because the demon had already exhausted much of his inner energy. He used his strongest sword art and struck with celestial equilibrium, but was shocked when the demon survived. The demon counterattacked, and the young master barely escaped using flicker step. He rushed forward again, but the demon defended with a shield and rained mana beams on him. The young master endured the assault and acknowledged the power of the demonic arts before striking back with flaming heavens and splitting the demon in two. He pointed out the demon lacked real battle experience with such arts. When questioned about not using the 9 calamities demonic art, the young master said it was unnecessary. The demon warned him that such confidence would lead to death. The young master followed with azure heavens and struck again, but realized that even this was not enough to finish the demon, and understood that he had truly become a monster. The young master realized the demon would not die unless his hidden core was destroyed and sensed its dangerous location. A fierce wind gathered as he leapt forward and drove his sword straight through the demon. A violent energy blast followed, and the young master crashed to the ground while coughing blood. The demon questioned how it was possible and collapsed to his knees. The young master explained that he had used a combination of Death Step and the 8th form of the soaring sword art. The demon was shocked that he knew the 4 strides of the wind god. The young master realized this hidden technique was the reason he survived the battle. As the demon faded, he promised revenge in another life. The young master calmly wished him a long and full life if he were reborn, and noted that no curse was left behind. Soon after, they were both returned to the room. The scene shifted to the blade man, who complained about how long the young master had taken, and teased him about making the snacks himself. The young master offered him a drink and invited him to enjoy the night despite his complaints about stamina. The blade man noticed the young master was in a good mood, and the young master admitted he was happy to see him again after a long time. They spoke about the investigator who had honestly refused to give his life, and the blade man said he liked that honesty. The young master said such words could change a person's life, and showed his habit of caring for everyone. The blade man joked about him taking care of even the lowest workers and said he had never met anyone like him. The young master said the cult would become something new and better even if it lasted only 1 generation. Moved by his words, the blade man asked him to pour a drink. The young master poured a drink and dedicated the first cup to his left guardian. He thought the blade man had truly decided to follow him with all his heart. The blade man jokingly asked which guardian rank was higher and wanted the top one. The young master laughed and complimented him, making the blade man demand he say it clearly to his face. They laughed together, teasing each other like old friends. The scene shifted to the next day at the Heavenly Demon Hall, where the young master stood before his father, who asked how he had killed the soul-absorbing supreme demon. The young master asked his father what he meant when he mentioned the demonic physician's report. His father said the demon likely died from energy deviation. The young master admitted he wished he could give an astonishing answer, but said he was not skilled enough to cause the demon's death that way. He thought about telling his father the truth but realized it would only burden him, and explained he had spent the night drinking with the sword demon as proof of his whereabouts. His father asked if they had killed the demon together, and the young master denied it, saying the demon's death was a punishment from the heavens. His father noted that the other supreme demons would soon react, leaving the young master to think that their shared lives meant they could not ignore this. The scene shifted to the North Heavenly Sword Clan, where Wuzhang welcomed him and offered to escort him to the Sword Supreme. The young master reflected that Wuzhang was likely the most shocked by the situation since the demon had died instead of him, and realized Wuzhang had indirectly caused the demon's death. The Flower Sword Supreme greeted him with a smile and invited him in. The young master bowed and greeted the Flower Sword Supreme, asking how she had been. She said she had been the same and asked about his trip outside the cult. He said it was a short break and returned. She complimented his progress and suggested a match, which he agreed to arrange soon. He gave her a small gift of flower seeds, and she was surprised since it was the first time anyone had given her seeds. Later they sat together, and she asked if he had heard about the death of the soul-absorbing supreme demon. He confirmed he had and said the demon likely died from energy deviation. She noted that no other supreme demons would believe that, and asked if he was involved. He explained he was not the one responsible, and compared himself to someone fishing in a turbulent sea. She agreed he had caught the sword demon, and teased that catching her would be harder. They discussed the unexpected death of the demon, and how the West Illusion Fort would face turmoil with a succession battle soon. The young master thought the soul-absorbing supreme demon had 5 disciples and that the most outstanding would inherit his position. He asked the Flower Sword Supreme whom she would support. She asked why he was curious, and he said it would be better if someone from their side took over. She agreed she could share allegiance with a dueling friend. Later that night the young master sat cross-legged in his room when Blade Man arrived asking for liquor. Blade Man was angry that he had been excluded from the Supreme Demon meeting. The young master realized only the Supreme Demons had gathered and asked what had happened. Blade Man explained no one spoke to him, and they suspected he and the young master had conspired to kill the soul-absorbing Supreme Demon. The young master reassured him they had not, and Blade Man said everyone believed the young master was responsible. They exchanged intense looks, and the young master thought the Blood Heaven Sword Demon must have seen the truth in his eyes. Blade Man asked if he truly trusted him, and the young master confirmed it. Blade Man reminded him he was also one of the 8 supreme demons, but the young master said he was his left guardian all the same. The Blade Man warned the young master that trusting others too easily would lead to betrayal. The young master replied that his trust was based on everything they had shared. When asked if he feared becoming the enemy of the Demon Supremes, he calmly calculated their numbers and explained that only 4 true enemies remained. The Blade Man grew frustrated but admitted he expected such madness from him. He then warned that neither he nor the Sword Supreme would fight the other Demon Supremes due to old rules. The young master said he already knew and accepted that he would fight alone as long as they did not betray him. The Blade Man said betrayal came from circumstances and told him not to trust him. The young master replied that he would shape the circumstances to prevent betrayal and asked for his help. Realizing his resolve, the Blade Man cursed him for risking his life and warned he would die if he failed. The young master calmly said he would be careful. Blade Man drank to calm down and explained that the Demon Supremes had summoned the Sky Heaven cult leader to investigate the soul-absorbing Supreme Demon's death. The sorcery had roots in the Blood Cult, the predecessor of the Sky Heaven cult, so their leader could determine the cause. Blade Man said the visit had 3 purposes. First, to show that the Demon Supremes were determined to find the culprit and to warn the Murim and Unorthodox alliances. The young master realized it also demonstrated the Supreme Leader's power over even the Sky Heaven cult leader. Second, it was to send a message to his father that the alliance was due to the Demon Supremes, not the cult leader. Third, it was about him. If he killed the demon, the cult leader would analyze him and uncover how it was done. The young master knew he had to keep his use of the blood eye purification water a secret or risk revenge and losing succession. He asked Blade Man if he was okay with this, and Blade Man said he was. The young master noted that Blade Man had now become his accomplice, and that their all-night drinking might make it appear they acted together. Blade Man joked that he may have dozed off during drinks. The young master asked which of the 8 Demon Supremes was sent to bring the Sky Heaven cult leader, and learned it was the demonic Buddha. He thought about chasing or killing the demonic Buddha or the cult leader, but Blade Man warned that would start a war with the outer Murim. The young master jokingly suggested an all-out war, but Blade Man told him to do it alone and left, saying survival was a personal matter. The next day at the Heavenly Demon Hall, the young master bowed to his father, who told him to go out for a while and visit the Nirvana Pavilion branch. The young master worried that leaving would make the Demon Supremes suspect him, but his father explained that the Sky Heaven cult leader would already figure out the truth about the soul-absorbing Supreme Demon. The young master denied killing the demon and suggested it could have been an assassin. His father said if that were true, the Murim alliance would have declared war. The young master asked if he would leave the cult, and his father said no. The young master said he would not leave either, because he could imitate his father, and that would be enough. His father warned him not to kill the Sky Heaven cult leader or any other Demon Supremes for now. The young master reassured himself that he had not killed the cult leader and thought of him as someone he was deeply grateful to, like a treasure vault. The young master thought there were only 2 ways to avoid getting caught after using blood eye purification water. One was a complete physical transformation, and the other was to change only his eyes. He knew that in this era only the demonic physician could change eyes. The physician asked if they could begin the discussion, and noted the young master had brought rare herbs. The young master asked the physician to perform the eye-enhancing surgery on him. He thought the surgery was a forbidden technique that greatly improved vision in all conditions. The physician asked how he knew about it. The young master remembered learning from Beck that the demonic physician had performed the surgery for the cult leader Jew Bekdo. The physician said the surgery needed the fruit of the Nirvana guanine herb and could only be done once in a generation. The young master said he was aware. The physician asked if the young master still wanted the eye-enhancing surgery even knowing the risks, and the young master agreed without hesitation. The physician asked what he would offer in return, and the young master said he had nothing now but promised to become the cult leader and grant any wish afterward. He thought the physician had always desired something his father never allowed, which was why his father refused the surgery. The physician asked if he was confident about becoming the successor, and the young master said he was and asked him to decide carefully. The physician then asked how he would deal with the Murim alliance and the Unorthodox alliance. The young master said it would depend on the situation, but anyone he judged truly evil would be destroyed without mercy. After the young master left, the physician remained seated. The blade man asked if his time was almost up and why he was acting strangely. The physician said they did not have much time left. The blade man mocked him and said not to lump them together. The physician asked why he still clung to the world, and the blade man replied that those who claimed no regrets were often the most troubled. He joked about killing someone together, but the physician denied it and said he only had one question. He then asked why the blade man had chosen the second young master. The blade man complained that the young master was involved in everything and had even dragged the physician into the battlefield. He said he chose him because he truly looked like someone who would become the cult leader. When asked why, he explained that the young master once said he did not even break tavern tables on his demonic path, and that was why he trusted him. The physician remarked that it was time the blade man stopped breaking them as well. The blade man shouted for him to stay and drink, but the physician said he would pay next time and walked away. The blade man muttered that the physician was stubborn and would not die easily. Later, the young master sat cross-legged in his room and sensed the demonic physician had arrived. The physician asked how he knew despite releasing no demonic energy, and the young master said it felt like fate. The physician confessed that he had saved people his whole life because he wanted to kill just one person. The young master already understood the reason and knew it was why the physician joined the cult. The physician said killing went against heaven, so he tried to atone by saving lives, and he asked if the young master would kill that person once he became cult leader. The young master agreed without hesitation. When asked why he did not ask who it was, he said anyone the physician wanted dead must be truly evil. The physician questioned whether he really understood his true self and spoke of the weight of his title. The young master replied that he believed in the effort it took to become the demonic physician. The young master was taking a hot shower while the physician thought about their earlier conversation. The physician warned that killing the target would be dangerous and wished the young master could do it without anyone else getting hurt. The young master promised to become stronger and keep that promise even if the physician died. He said he would whisper that the sword came from the physician when he struck. The physician checked on him, and the young master felt great. His vision had improved dramatically, and he could see everything clearly even in the dark. The physician led him to the balcony and told him to look at the sun. The young master looked and felt no pain. He could see far into the distance, and even noticed ants on a distant branch. The physician smiled, happy for him, and the young master thanked him. The physician said the procedure was a complete success, and his eyes had been reborn. The young master thanked the physician for using a secret technique on him and promised to keep his word no matter what. The physician said he would tell him who to kill when he became the cult leader. The young master thought about how the eye surgery had erased traces of the blood eye purification water, and realized his fate was intertwined with the Sky Heaven cult. He silently thanked the Sky Heaven cult leader. The scene shifted to the practice ground where Lee was training with her sword. The young master arrived and tried to get her to play, but she said she had to practice her technique. She trained 60 times a day and needed the evening session of 20 times. The young master warned it would make her sick, but she said she could not sleep without training. He offered to let her skip, but she insisted on finishing. He asked how many repetitions were left, and she said 8, warning that interruptions would make it take longer. He corrected her stance and left to train his heavenly demon defense art. As he practiced, he felt the depth of the art and connected with it like a living, breathing martial art. Lee stood near him after finishing her training and said she was done with all 20 sets. The young master suggested going out to drink, and she complained that she was starving. She revealed that he had not eaten for 3 whole days because he had been circulating energy in deep meditation. She explained that she did not dare disturb him when he entered that state. The young master was shocked because it felt like less than an hour had passed, yet he sensed his energy flow had become smoother and more precise. Lee noted that he must have grown stronger. He happily offered to buy her a fancy meal and thanked her, saying her persistence had led him into that trance. She accepted and demanded food. She joked that she had eaten, while he realized she must have paused her training for 3 days to protect his meditation. He called her sweet in his thoughts. She teased him back by saying she was smart and loyal, proud of taking advantage of the moment. The young master smiled and thought she was a clever fox, and she proudly said she still had many sides left to show. He happily offered to buy her a fancy meal and thanked her. The scene shifted to the heavenly demon hall where Nung Paso, the Sky Heaven cult leader, respectfully greeted the divine cult leader and thanked him for the invitation. They spoke calmly about how 10 years had passed and how Paso had been doing well, while the demonic Buddha Geo Rabin remarked that the journey to meet an old friend had been pleasant. The divine cult leader ended the meeting politely, saying it was late and suggesting they meet again in the morning, and Paso took his leave. Later on the grounds, the demonic Buddha complained that the treatment had been cold and said Paso should have at least been offered tea, but Paso brushed it off, saying it was late and that he did not wish to get close to the cult leader. The demonic Buddha argued that it was a matter of pride and honor, yet Paso cut him short and insisted on seeing the corpse immediately, declaring that rest could wait until death. Buddha agreed to go and complained about how stubborn everyone was. The scene shifted to Derong, who reported that the Sky Heaven cult leader had arrived with the 10 great demons and 100 elite blood core from his cult. The young master thought about how the Sky Heaven cult leader was the absolute ruler of the Outer Murim and possessed the strongest Outer Murim martial art. He remembered that the blood cult used to rival the heavenly demon divine cult but had weakened after joining the Sky Heaven cult. Derong added that the Sky Heaven cult leader first paid respects to the cult leader, and then went to examine the corpse of the soul-absorbing supreme demon. In a cold room, Buddha asked about the corpse, and Paso explained that the 8 energy meridians were damaged and the heart had serious trauma from repeated use of the soul-absorbing art. Paso confirmed that the death was caused by energy deviation and that the supreme demon died fighting someone in his own created space. Buddha found it hard to believe and questioned who could infiltrate the West Illusion Fort, kill the supreme demon, and escape, noting that the supreme demon was one of their strongest warriors and had never been disliked by the cult leader. Paso asked if there was another suspect who was more likely to be the killer, and Buddha named the cult leader's second son. Paso was shocked that they had suspected the son from the beginning and felt he had been dragged into a dangerous matter, but he calmly suggested questioning the second young master the next day. Later that day, the young master greeted Paso respectfully, and Paso noted how much he had grown since childhood. They exchanged polite words, and Paso mentioned that the young master's reputation had reached even the Outer Murim. Paso brought up the death of the soul-absorbing supreme demon, saying the cult leader was deeply saddened, and the young master agreed that the demon had been one of his most cherished subordinates. When Paso asked who could have killed him, the young master showed surprise and said he had heard it was due to energy deviation. He noticed energy flowing from Paso's eyes and realized Paso was trying to confirm something, but he was confident nothing could be detected. Paso then ended the meeting and took his leave. The young master asked Paso to stay a little longer, but Paso said seeing his face was enough and he should not keep a busy person. The young master thanked him sincerely, thinking he was grateful for the power he had gained because of Paso. Paso agreed they would meet again and walked away. The young master reflected that the Sky Heaven cult leader had always given him help through fate, so he could not dislike him. Later on the ground, Buddha asked about the second young master, and Paso said he had no connection to the soul-absorbing art and lacked the skill to overpower someone in a space created by it. Buddha confirmed that meant Geometry Muguk was not the killer, and Paso reassured him. Buddha wanted to summon the 7 demon supremes to explain, but Paso said he could just relay the message. Paso then looked at the clan and quietly wondered how the second young master had killed the soul-absorbing supreme demon. Later that night, Blade Man said at least they had cleared the suspicion of killing the soul-absorbing supreme demon. The young master asked how he had tricked the Sky Heaven cult leader's eyes, but Blade Man reminded him he had been drinking all night and had not done it. Blade Man warned that among the 7 demon supremes, some did not agree with the cult leader, especially the demonic Buddha, who seemed the most skeptical. The young master told Sword Demon to speak up if he ever disagreed or felt something was wrong, so resentment would not build between them. Blade Man asked what would happen if the young master found him unbearable or unworthy of the new demonic path, and if he lost all charm, would the young master remove him? The young master thought he had not expected the question, and reassured him that his demonic path did not involve killing friends. Blade Man asked if he was truly the young master friend. The young master nodded and said he would always speak honestly, pointing out flaws and urging him to regain his old charm, and promised they would work together to get along. Blade Man asked what if he could not change, and the young master said if he tried but failed, they would live off good memories, but if he did not try, they would fight it out to clear the air. Blade Man laughed, admitted his life was not entirely full of misfortune, and walked away. The young master realized he had heard Blade Man's heart opening a little and resolved to keep listening, knowing that understanding others was as important to him as his demonic martial arts. Later, Paso arrived at the young master's room at night with something urgent to tell him. The young master was surprised Paso came alone at this hour and invited him inside. Paso asked if the young master recognized the martial art he sensed, and the young master said it was his first time encountering it. Paso reminded him that he had already seen this space when he fought and killed the soul-absorbing supreme demon. The young master denied knowing what Paso was talking about, but Paso said the death only looked like energy deviation and insisted the soul-absorbing supreme demon had been killed in his own space. Paso admitted he had no proof, yet said he was certain because he could not read the young master, and feared he could be killed as well. The young master noted that Paso had judged him accurately but calmly said it was a misjudgment. Paso explained he was not provoking him and had no wish to die like the supreme demon. The young master pointed out that if Paso were truly sure, he would have told the 7 demon supremes, which would have caused great chaos, especially due to his link with demonic Buddha. Paso replied that there were no real friends in Murim and said this visit was only a gesture of goodwill. The young master realized Paso might not be as close to the others as assumed and clarified that Paso had done him no real favor because he lacked proof. When Paso argued he could still raise suspicion, the young master explained that such suspicion would only make others cautious and strengthen his position. He concluded that Paso had actually hindered him and said that if Paso wished to offer a favor, it should be a real one. He knew demonic path, and if he lost all charm, would the young master remove him? The young master thought he had not expected the question and reassured him that his demonic path did not involve killing friends. Paso asked for an opinion and the man reacted with anger and curses, mocking death and fate. Paso replied calmly and warned him about using informal speech, then questioned his bad mood. With a snap of his fingers, they moved to a grassy place under a fake sky, where the man complained and showed his longing even for false freedom. Paso reflected on why he tolerated the man's rudeness, remembering his sharp mind, valuable advice, lack of fear toward death, and mysterious will to keep living. He then mentioned that he had shown goodwill to the second young master but received further demands, and asked if the man truly believed the second young master would become the heir. The man answered that anyone who killed the soul-absorbing supreme demon deserved to be the heir, though he doubted such a feat was possible for someone so young. Paso admitted that the second young master was powerful and said he could not deny his fear, since a man who could kill a demon supreme could kill anyone. He explained that this fear was one reason they had to restrain him. The man pointed out that the leader of the heavenly demon divine cult already knew the truth and was staying silent on purpose. Paso questioned this, but the man insisted that an extraordinary leader stayed quiet only when preparing something big. Paso guessed it might be to unify the Central Plains, but the man said the true aim was unclear. He explained that the death of the soul-absorbing supreme demon was either an order or something the heavenly demon allowed, since that demon was the most troublesome of the 8 demon supremes. He reasoned that the heavenly demon intended to replace the 8 demon supremes with loyal subordinates, starting with his own son. He warned that once this happened, the heavenly demon would either use them as the front force or erase them before starting a war with the Murim alliance. He concluded that a great change was coming, and those who failed to sense it would die, just like the isolated soul-absorbing supreme demon. Paso asked if they should choose the heavenly demon, and the man answered that the heavenly demon would surely win because he never fought a battle he could not win. He advised Paso to side with the second young master at all costs, and to gain his favor with a gift that Paso least wanted to give. After saying this was enough advice, the man enjoyed looking at the sky, but Paso sent him back to the dark room despite his desperate protests, and walked away. Later that night, Paso met the young master again and asked him to walk instead of talking inside. They stood on a quiet cliff, and Paso spoke about the desolate place being his hometown. The young master said he liked the silence, and Paso promised to invite him someday. Paso then admitted he had not yet shown true goodwill and presented a martial art that could create a separate space. He explained that it was a rare demonic art used only by masters of the blood cult, and was called the space-time transference illusion art. He added that with the death of the soul-absorbing supreme demon, he was now the only one who could properly use it. Paso explained that the separate space could save a life in a crisis by erasing the user's presence from the world. The young master realized it was a perfect escape art and thought about how many rare items and techniques he had already gained, sensing a deep connection with Paso. He then asked what Paso truly wanted. Paso said he no longer wished to remain trapped and wanted to step into the Central Plains. He offered the space-time transference illusion art in exchange for help with that first step. The young master replied that such a decision was not his to make and that it required approval from both the cult leader and the demon supremes. Paso agreed and explained that this was why he was entrusting him with the secret manual. He clearly stated that in 2 days he planned to negotiate with the cult leader for entry into the Central Plains, and wanted the young master to stand by his side and help persuade him. He promised to give the manual no matter the result if the young master agreed. The young master found the offer shocking and felt it was closer to a gift than a demand, but he said the approach was wrong since his father would never allow the Sky Heaven cult to enter the Central Plains. When Paso asked what should be done instead, the young master reasoned that if the cult was not to be destroyed, it was better to keep it close and under watch rather than let it become a threat later. He then asked if the manual was enough to hear the answer, and Paso nodded and handed it over, saying it was enough. The young master realized that Paso had come fully determined to win his favor and warned that he could take the manual without offering a solution. Paso replied that doing so would ruin their relationship forever and even make the path to cult leadership impossible. The young master then explained that for the Sky Heaven cult to enter the Central Plains, Paso had to interfere in the succession dispute of the West Illusion Fort. He said the disciples of the fallen soul-absorbing Supreme Demon would need support, and that Paso should choose a successor who truly believed in him and was willing to learn. Later that night, Paso felt drained after giving away something precious and admitted he had passed the space-time transference illusion art to the second young master, still unsure if it was the right choice. The man calmly said Paso had done well, which surprised him and made him uneasy. Paso suspected an outburst would come later and asked if the man even understood the proposal. The man replied that the young master must have asked Paso to intervene in the West Illusion Fort succession dispute. Paso asked how the man already knew the method, and the man replied that it was simply the best choice at the moment. Paso became angry and questioned why the man had not told him earlier, and why such a precious manual had been given away. When the man challenged him, Paso threatened him as the cult leader. The man then explained that the manual was not payment for a solution but the price of an opportunity to place the young master firmly on their side, and that true alliances always demanded repeated sacrifices. Paso doubted whether the young master was truly worthy and questioned if he would become the next heavenly demon. The man admitted he could not know the future and warned Paso not to regret what he had already chosen to give. Paso worried about what to do next, but the man strongly scolded him for losing momentum after gaining a clear advantage. He explained that many in the Murim died meaningless deaths because they doubted when they should believe and trusted when they should doubt. Paso began counting his fingers in anger, which led the man to threaten him into silence. Soon after, they were sent to the grassy ground again, where the man finally asked calmly what was truly troubling Paso and urged him to speak honestly. The young master sat cross-legged and practiced the new art, feeling success as he managed to deploy the space in only 4 hours. He realized this was far faster than expected and decided to keep reducing the time until he could use it freely. He observed the empty space and believed that one day he would shape it into a form of his own choosing. Later, Paso met the demonic Buddha, who came late at night and mentioned hearing about Paso meeting the second young master. Paso explained that he had to meet someone who might become the future cult leader. The Buddha insisted that the first young master would be the successor, but Paso argued that the situation was not so clear, pointing out the second young master's rise as Nirvana Pavilion Master. The Buddha dismissed this and said it was only an additional role, not a sign of succession. Paso accepted the possibility but felt regret at not meeting the first young master and asked why the Buddha supported him so strongly. The Buddha replied that the first young master would be the successor and said his certainty came purely from intuition. Paso suspected that the Buddha was hiding important knowledge about the first young master and felt bitter despite being called a friend. The Buddha warned him not to act rashly and hinted that many eyes were watching him, then advised him to return to the Sky Heaven cult without causing trouble. Paso felt insulted but hid it behind polite words, while the Buddha laughed it off as a joke and invited him to stay and enjoy himself. Paso agreed on the surface and suggested leaving together for a drink, and the Buddha accepted. After the Buddha left, Paso asked the chained man for his thoughts. The man said the Buddha was anxious and had noticed Paso's intent to ally with the second young master. Paso wondered if that alone caused such worry, and the man replied that it showed how wary the Buddha was of the second young master. When Paso asked what to do next, the man told him to think for himself. Paso insisted the matter involved the survival of the cult, but the man avoided giving a clear answer. They soon moved to the grassy ground again, where the man relaxed and expressed his love for the place. Paso asked why he liked it so much, and the man replied that being shackled made freedom precious, then suggested switching roles. Paso refused. The man warned that the demonic Buddha would try to force Paso back and might use his cult leader as pressure. Paso said this was their chance to gain a foothold in the Central Plains, but the man advised him to ask the second young master for a way to stay. He added that even if he knew the method, Paso still had to offer a gift first. Paso questioned why he had to cling to the second young master, and the man replied that there was no one else he could rely on. Paso realized that the heavenly demon despised him. The first young master was backed by powerful allies, and only the blood heaven sword demon openly supported the second young master. The man said that if Paso refused to rely on him, he could return to the frontier and live a safe but controlled life. Paso grew angry at this, but the man calmly explained that victory depended on choosing wisely and believing until the end. Paso rejected the lecture and admitted he did not want to give everything to the second young master, still regretting the loss of the precious art. The man bluntly called him greedy, and Paso felt both hurt and strangely relieved at being seen clearly. Still unwilling to give more, Paso protested, but the man insisted that once a choice was made, he had to believe in it and give everything. The man mocked Paso and said he should return to his relic and papers, claiming that suited him best. Paso firmly declared that he would establish the Sky Heaven cult in the Central Plains and achieve what his predecessors could not. The man replied coldly that it would likely never happen, which left Paso more shaken than any curse. Later that night, the young master visited his usual pleasure bar and was warmly welcomed. He joked about his hunger, and the owner promised to prepare all his favorite dishes. When asked why he always came there instead of finer places, the young master explained that the food, liquor, atmosphere, and the owner's understanding made it perfect. After the owner left, the young master smiled and reflected that this demonic village was the true foundation of the path he intended to build, and that forgetting its importance would make him no different from the demon supremes. Suddenly, a drunken man nearby accused a boy of staring and struck him. When a woman tried to stop it, the man threw her aside, and a child ran to her in fear. The mother and child cried together, holding each other, as the violence echoed through the tavern. A man threatened a crying child, but the boy stopped him, and the man was suddenly blown away by strong wind pressure. The crowd was shocked as the woman called the boy and urged them to leave, and the boy agreed and went with them. The injured man raged and threatened to kill the woman and child, demanding to know who had attacked him. The young master stepped forward and questioned whether such violence was worth going that far, condemning the man for striking a father in front of his child. He reflected that he had acted to protect the child's memory of his father without direct punishment. When the man attacked him, the young master easily restrained him, explained that none of this should have escalated, and demanded to know why it happened. The man tried to kill him with a dagger, but the young master defeated him with a single blow. Investigators arrived, and the young master ordered them to take the man to the Nirvana Pavilion and uncover all his crimes. He then declared to the crowd that demonic cultists would no longer be allowed to commit atrocities without consequence, and told them to report such acts. As he walked away, Paso asked if he truly meant that demonic cultists should not take evil deeds for granted. Paso commented that demonic cultists should not take evil deeds for granted and that it was surprising to hear such words from the young leader of the heavenly demon divine cult. The young master said it was because he disliked being boxed in and that young people nowadays thought differently. Paso admitted he was still old-fashioned, and the young master advised keeping young people close with an open heart, noting the blood heaven sword demon had grown younger in spirit. Paso asked if he had deployed the space-time transference illusion art, and the young master confirmed he had succeeded, describing the space as marvelous, and saying he would fully immerse himself in the martial art. Paso was shocked it had taken only 4 hours and praised his aptitude, asking to see it next time. The young master agreed and then asked why Paso had come today. Paso said he needed a reason to stay because the demonic Buddha was trying to send him away, wary of their potential alliance. The young master suspected there was another reason and asked what Paso would give in return. Paso said it was stingy to ask, and the young master insisted on choosing one of the divine relics Paso brought. Paso called him insane, and the young master countered that Paso was the one being reckless by invading the Central Plains amid chaos after a demon supreme had died. Later that night, the young master was surprised that Paso had accepted his proposal and offered him a divine relic to form an alliance. He asked about a bound man, and Paso explained he was guarding the Thunder Bell. The young master noticed the man's gaze was not like a normal subordinate and that he had ignored the Sky Heaven cult leader, suggesting he was more important than he appeared. Paso warned him not to choose the Thunder Bell or the Blood Flame. The young master saw the famous Thunder Bell and felt a strange presence within it. Paso told him to go ahead and choose, and the young master pointed to a box with an eggshell, feeling drawn to it. The shackled man used a whispering technique to influence the cult leader's decision, which surprised the young master. Paso revealed the eggshell contained the Blood God Pill, a legendary elixir of the Outer Murim. The young master realized Paso had saved it for him. Paso agreed to give him the pill but said the young master must first show how he could keep him in the heavenly demon divine cult. Without hesitation, the young master ate the pill while explaining the method, and Paso was shocked as red aura flared around him. Paso clenched his teeth and thought about killing the young master after seeing him swallow the Blood God Pill. The shackled man urged him to kill the young master and start a full war, but Paso hesitated and finally sat down instead. The man mocked him and said Paso would not kill him because the young master was far sharper than expected and had already judged him completely. He explained that such a person would surely give the right answer and that the method would become clear once the energy circulation ended. Paso demanded to know the answer, but the man refused, saying Paso's face would reveal it. The man added that no gambler could hide his expression before the successor of the Sky Heaven cult. Paso complained that the young master was acting too familiar, but the man advised him to give everything to the young master, saying it would not be a loss. When Paso questioned what he would gain, the man said he would finally be able to live in the Central Plains, which had always been his dream. He concluded that the young master's intent to swallow everything at once showed he meant to keep that promise. Paso feared that if the young master broke his promise, they would end up ruined, but the shackled man said he would still support him even in poverty. Paso worried the young master might lose the succession struggle and die, and the man replied that betting fate meant gaining everything or losing it all. Paso accused him of dragging him into ruin, and the man calmly admitted it while saying sacrifice was necessary, unlike the blessed young master before them. As red aura flared and the ground shook, the young master finished circulating his energy, making Paso realize how deep his cultivation was and how openly he displayed his strength. The young master thanked him, and Paso complained about his boldness in using the elixir openly. The young master explained it was payment, and revealed his method, which was to report the elixir as stolen so Paso could remain in the heavenly demon divine cult while the investigation continued under his control. Paso realized the plan only after hearing it, while the shackled man said he had understood the moment the pill was swallowed. They discussed how the young master had known the pill value and why it was given to him. Paso raged that if everything failed, they would all die together, and the man reminded him that this had already been promised. The man added that no gambler could hide his expression before the successor of the Sky Heaven cult. The scene shifted to the cult leader pavilion, and the young master thought his father probably already knew everything, but it was still different to speak to him personally. He remembered why, his father's guard, from his childhood, and invited him to a meal before walking inside. Suddenly, he felt pressure and was attacked, realizing he would die if he tried to dodge normally. He drifted back and saw his father attacking him with a sword. His father complimented his improved skill, and the young master replied that he practiced more than most, second only to Leon. His father joked he should consider himself third, and the young master thought his father was doing well. The father asked why he had come, and the young master explained that the Sky Heaven cult leader wanted to join hands with him, and that there seemed to be a split among the 8 demon supremes. His father said it was arrogant for the demon supremes to bring the Sky Heaven cult leader, and that it was their mistake. The young master realized his father was conflicted, wishing to punish the demon supremes but knowing they were necessary to avoid Murim interference. He asked why the Sky Heaven cult leader came to him instead of his father, and his father said it was because he was intimidating and the leader thought the young master would be easier to use. The young master asked what the Sky Heaven cult leader wanted and decided to play dumb. His father told him to ask his strategist, but the young master said he had none. His father said he must get one, and the young master complained that finding a strategist as clever as Sema Myung was difficult. His father noted he had managed fine without one, and the young master admitted most of his success was due to luck and past life experience. He asked again what the cult leader wanted, and his father said he dreamed of advancing into the Central Plains. The young master thought back to his previous life, remembering that the cult leader never entered the Central Plains and died outside it, but now his fate could change. His father explained that the blood cult of the outer Murim always desired to enter the central plains. The young master realized why the cult leader sought him and reflected that sometimes it was better to ask his father even when he already knew, out of respect. His father invited him to sit and eat before leaving, and he nodded in agreement. Later in the evening, the young master sat facing the demonic Buddha, who said he had come because his friend Divine Relic had been stolen and asked if thieves were truly responsible. The young master questioned what he meant by true, while Buddha said it was hard to believe thieves existed within the cult. The young master replied that it was even harder to believe the Sky Heaven cult leader staged it himself. Buddha warned that if thieves were real, the cult reputation would suffer and suggested quietly sending the Sky Heaven cult leader away. The young master realized Buddha was testing him and believed the incident was staged with his help. He said the Sky Heaven cult leader would not listen to him since he was only a pavilion master. Buddha replied that the leader believed the young master would become the successor, which was why he had come to greet him. The young master sensed Buddha was watching his reactions but could not read him. Buddha insisted they must send the Sky Heaven cult leader back for the cult's sake, but the young master refused. He argued that keeping him inside the cult was safer, since he would not dare speak freely and could be quietly pressured to stay silent if he wanted his divine relic found. Investigator Darong reported that the soul-absorbing supreme demon had 5 disciples, with the first disciple Yang Du and the third disciple Chong Xian being the most likely successors. The young master asked about their reputation within the West Illusion Fort. The investigator explained that Yang Du had more experience and martial skill but a brutal temper, while Chong Xian was young, beautiful, and popular. The young master ordered a thorough investigation into both disciples, covering everything from martial arts to human relationships. He asked who the Sky Heaven cult leader would choose, noting he sent data on the disciples because he wanted to enter the succession battle himself. The investigator asked if he intended to kill the Sky Heaven cult leader or the disciples, and the young master denied being a killer. They discussed that people worried about who he would kill, and the investigator mentioned the Blood Heaven's sword demon, who still refused to be called master but regarded him as a disciple. The scene shifted to cult leader Paso, who asked the man who they should support, and noticed him staring at the bell. The man said the demon engraved on the bell sometimes spoke to him. The cult leader asked what the bell was saying, and the bound man replied that it questioned why he lived that way. Paso pressed for an answer, and the man said he once blamed a greedy person from the past but now felt it was not entirely because of that. Paso grew impatient, and the man mocked him, saying the voice was only a fragment. Paso admitted his own madness and spoke as if addressing the demon itself. The man then named Chong Xian as the answer. Paso was shocked and said he had expected Yang Du, but the man told him to follow his own conscience. Paso decided to choose Chong Xian with conviction and asked how to make her his disciple. The man said he did not know and reminded Paso of his situation in shackles. Paso reflected that he could never release those shackles and wondered how to approach Chong Xian without being overbearing. The man explained that from her view, an old outsider demanding discipleship would be unreasonable. Paso admitted she would likely refuse, and the man said such matters could not be done casually. When Paso said the disciple should pay the price, the man replied that this was old thinking and that the one who desired it more must pay the price. Paso shouted that he was tired of always giving and wanted to receive. He demanded that she bring the sacred treasures to fill his vaults, and kneel all day in the courtyard to plead. The man warned that if a price was to be paid, the target would be the second young master, not Chong Xian. Paso reacted in shock. The man explained that the second young master would desire the treasures and would always be the one to act. The scene shifted to the room where the young master looked at information on Yang Du and Chong Xian. The investigator said he had found something strange about Chong Xian. The young master asked what it was. The investigator explained that Chong Xian had met Cao Wuzhang several times, though they seemed unconnected. The young master realized that Cao Wuzhang had tried to kill the Flower Sword Supreme using soul-absorbing arts but had died, and that Chong Xian must have been behind it. He concluded that Chong Xian and Cao Wuzhang had been dating. The investigator asked how he knew. The young master thought that only Chong Xian could have leaked such important information and acted as she did. He stood up and walked away. The investigator asked where he was going. The young master said he was going to get some sacred treasures. Cult leader Paso thanked the young master for the material he sent. The young master asked if he had found a way to join the battle for the West Illusion Fort's successor. Paso said not yet. The young master urged him to hurry before the demon supremes chose the successor themselves. Paso explained that he was trapped and could not easily meet the successors. The young master understood. Paso asked who he should take as a disciple. The young master said Chong Xian, and noticed Paso was not surprised, thinking they had already reached the same conclusion. Paso agreed that Chong Xian was suitable but said they could not persuade her. The young master offered to make Chong Xian come to Paso directly and personally asked to become his disciple, promising to prepare her meal himself. Paso said that would be enough. The young master asked for one divine relic in return. Paso called him shameless. The young master explained it was just a natural order and that people should be fairly compensated for their work. Paso said he was from that era. The young master said he belonged to the present era and would bring results worthy of a divine relic. The leader agreed to the young master's proposal. The young master thought the man in chains had convinced him. He said his responsibility ended once Chong Xian asked to become the leader's disciple and that raising her to demon supreme would depend on the leader. The leader joked that he would likely return for another relic. The young master said he would if he could and then took his leave, bowing to the shackled man. The scene shifted to the northern Heavenly Sword clan. Wuzhong welcomed the young master, who asked how he had been. Wuzhong said he was fine. The young master thought that even after failing to use the soul-absorbing supreme demon to drive him out, Wuzhong showed no resentment. He planned to use Chong Xian as bait. The Flower Sword Supreme invited him in. The young master said she looked younger than before. She complimented a seed he had given her, which had grown well, and remarked on the mystery of the world's life force. The young master noticed Wuzhong's aura calming and quietly observed him. He asked if Wuzhong could bring wine inside dishes, saying he had information to leak. She instructed Wuzhong to bring the wine, mentioning it had been a while since she drank with the second young master. Wuzhong nodded, surprised she would drink with him. While outside, Wuzhong heard the young master say that the likely candidates for the next soul-absorbing supreme demon were the first disciple Yang Du and the third disciple Chong Xian. She commented that Yang Du seemed the stronger contender. The young master said Chong Xian still had options. He explained that the martial arts of the Sky Heaven cult leader and the soul-absorbing supreme demon shared the same origin. If Chong Xian could learn from the Sky Heaven cult leader, she would have a chance to win. The Flower Sword Supreme asked if the leader would accept her. He said he would, because taking her as a disciple would give him a reason to stay in the Central Plains. She agreed. He warned that if Chong Xian did not become his disciple, Yang Du would take the position and she would lose her chance. Wuzhong entered with the tray and left. The Flower Sword Supreme asked why he brought this up. The young master revealed that Sa Wuzhong was in a relationship with Chong Xian. She said she had no idea. He explained that Sa Wuzhong was ambitious and might manipulate her, and that he had found a use for this information. She thanked him and said she would be cautious but continue as usual. The young master promised to repay her with what the demon supreme desired and said they would cross swords again. She said she looked forward to it. Later that night Chong Xian asked why Wuzhong had come first. Wuzhong said he had missed her very much that day. Wuzhong asked Chong Xian if she had been busy lately. She said people suggested she become a demon supreme, but she did not think she could defeat her senior brother. He told her she must become the demon supreme because if her senior brother took the position, he would not let her live. The moment she was a candidate, she was already on the dueling platform where life and death decided the outcome. She said it would be impossible because he was stronger. He said there was one way, the Sky Heaven cult leader. Her eyes widened as she realized he was there now and learning from him might let her defeat her senior brother. The young master thought she must rise to demon supreme so he could control the power of the soul-absorbing supreme demon, and eventually make the sword supreme his. The scene shifted to Paso, who complained that the food and side dishes for his subordinates had worsened, with smaller portions, mostly fat, and cheap wine. The man said it was an attempt to drive them out, and explained that it was the work of the demonic Buddha, not the heavenly demon divine cult. Paso shouted that he would confront him. The man asked what he would say. Paso said he would demand the food back and roll on the floor crying about such cheap behavior. The man told Paso to have a safe trip, but Paso angrily complained that the second young master was too slow and had failed to give him a solution. The man told him to be patient, and said true followers would remain loyal even if they starved. Paso argued that hunger would still cause complaints and hatred, creating discord. The man said only those who endured such chaos would remain. A servant then announced that Chong Xian had arrived. Paso was shocked as she entered and greeted him with deep respect. He said he had heard she was the greatest necromancer of the West Illusion Fort. She humbly denied it, and explained that her late master had told her their martial arts came from the blood cult. Paso agreed and asked why she had come. She asked him to accept her as his disciple. Paso was stunned and muttered that the second young master was insane, while the man said that was why they needed him. Paso complained about the divine relic, and the man told him to broaden his patience. Chong Xian worried about being rejected, but Paso said he wished to see blood cult demonic arts shine in the Central Plains, though he was unsure her cult leader would allow it. She calmly said her cult placed no limits on such bonds and that it would strengthen the West Illusion Fort. Paso warned that her senior brother would oppose it. She said it did not matter and begged to learn how to defeat him. Paso warned that her senior brother might die. She replied that she could not simply die instead. Paso saw the ruthless madness in her eyes and thought the next soul-absorbing supreme demon might be worth watching. Chong Xian then walked outside. Paso thought Chong Xian had more backbone than he expected. The man agreed. Paso decided she was worth taking under his wing and admitted he was drawn to her subtle, ambitious nature. The man warned that her hunger could even devour her own master. Paso said that was what made her good. He noticed the man seemed in a good mood. The man asked if he should curse to make him feel better, but Paso refused. They discussed how quiet the heavenly demon divine cult leader had been. The man said he would stay quiet because the second young master must have already met his father and settled matters. Paso was surprised. The man explained that success and failure came down to meticulousness. Paso asked why he praised the second young master so highly. The man said if he did not like it, they could leave for the blood cult and avoid praising him. Paso shouted at being called unlucky, and the man said it was because he kept walking a path of misfortune. A servant reported that the cooks had prepared meals for their warriors and left, sent by the second young master with top-grade ingredients. Paso looked surprised and realized this was an example of meticulousness. The man said it was remarkable for someone so young to achieve so much, and that they might be witnessing the birth of an unprecedented figure in the Murim. The cult leader complained that he was losing all his sacred treasures. The man told him to see it as being used for a great cause. The leader said he did not want to be a tool for someone else's success. The man said to be the protagonist, one must work as diligently as the second young master. The leader insisted he had worked hard. The man said effort also came from resisting greed and handing over sacred relics, and that he understood the leader's struggle. The leader remembered feeling helpless while watching others suffer, and shouted that he hated handing over his relics, and would tell the second young master to get lost. When a servant announced the second young master had arrived, the leader stopped shouting in surprise. The man laughed and said they should get it over with. Later the young master chose an item. The leader asked if he knew what it was. The young master admitted he did not, only that it looked mysterious with silk around it. The leader explained it was the supreme heavenly silk, a legendary treasure that could not be cut even by sword strikes, could block enhanced sword energy when layered, could protect arms, legs, or the heart, blocked cold, resisted fire, and only a few weapons in the Murim could cut it without enhanced sword energy. The young master realized that one of the few weapons able to cut the supreme heavenly silk was the black demonic sword he carried. He apologized and thanked the leader sincerely for the gift. The leader questioned why he chose it without knowing its value but still handed it over and told him to use it well. The young master felt grateful and understood that the leader would never give up his sacred relics willingly, and that this was only possible because of the shackled man. Later in the room, the Blade Man confronted the young master about Chong Xian becoming the Sky Heaven cult leader's disciple. The young master admitted it was his doing. The Blade Man accused him of plotting with the Sky Heaven cult. The young master said he was only helping and asked if it was forbidden to help them expand into the Central Plains. The Blade Man warned him that he did not understand what he was dealing with. The young master said he had the Blade Man by his side and asked him to at least face the Sky Heaven cult leader if needed. The Blade Man warned him not to underestimate that man, saying he was capable of leading the Outer Murim and that if the Outer Murim ran wild, the Central Plains would drown in blood. The young master thought the Blade Man spoke as if the Sky Heaven cult leader was terrifying and said he would keep that in mind. The Blade Man asked why Chong Xian, and the young master said she was the easiest to move. The Blade Man asked if she could become the next Demon Supreme. The young master said neither she nor the first disciple was ready and advised proper training for Investigator Seal. The blade man told him to stop dreaming, and the young master said he was the one dreaming, not Seo. The blade man asked about the decorative wrap on the young master's arm. The young master said it was just decoration. The blade man guessed it was from the Sky Heaven cult leader, and the young master admitted he received it but joked that helping someone did not always require a reward. The blade man realized it was the supreme heavenly silk. The young master offered to cut him a piece, but the blade man refused. The young master said older people should wrap it for protection. The blade man asked if he received anything else, and the young master said he also got the blood god pill. The blade man was shocked and angry, recognizing it as the best elixir in the outer Murim. The young master nodded. The blade man asked if the Sky Heaven cult leader had given the young master the blood god pill. The young master said yes and that he had already digested it. The blade man said his inner energy must have surpassed his own. The young master thought that even before the blood god pill, his energy rivaled the demon supremes, and now it completely surpassed theirs. The blade man said with such power, and the highest grade celestial silkworm thread, he could discard his left wing. The young master said his wing was part of his body and could not be replaced. The blade man said when the body dies, the wing would find a new one. The young master teased if he was jealous, and the blade man shouted it was just precaution. The blade man then left, saying he did not care even if he was just a dragonfly's wing. The young master smiled. When the investigator announced the Flower Sword Supreme had arrived, the blade man asked if the young master summoned him to meet her. The young master said he did not arrange it and called him rude. The blade man said she would not be happy to see him, and the young master said it did not matter since he never cared about others' feelings. The Flower Sword Supreme was surprised and asked if the meeting was arranged on purpose. The young master denied it and told them to have a seat. She said she came to tell him something. The blade man said he would leave and told her to talk. She said he could stay and explained that the demonic Buddha had asked her to support the succession of one of the soul-absorbing Supreme Demon's disciples. The young master thought the appointment of a new Demon Supreme was decided by the 8 Demon Supremes and required a majority vote. She reminded him he had said it would be best to support their own people as her sparring partner. The young master acknowledged he remembered. The blade man asked what sparring partner meant, and the young master said it was a long story. The blade man accused him of conspiring with everyone else, but the young master said he was his first wing and now looking for the right wing. She asked whom he supported, and he said Chong Xian. She agreed to support Chong Xian as well. The young master thought she trusted him completely, even allowing the Blood Heaven Sword Demon to stay, and thanked her. The blade man noted that made only 2 votes, and asked if he had secured others. The young master said not yet, and asked each of them to persuade one other Demon Supreme. The blade man asked what was in it for them, and the young master said he would benefit the most, which in turn would benefit them. She said she would try to persuade the others and hoped one might vote for Chong Xian. The blade man said the young master made it sound like he was useless. She agreed and they glared at each other. The young master thought they needed time to vent since either would truly harm the other. He thanked them for telling him about the demonic Buddha's request and for helping persuade the others. She dismissed it as not a favor and walked away. The blade man said he was leaving too. The young master thought that despite receiving divine relics and being called a sparring partner, the blade man showed no reaction. He told him he was always the highest priority. The blade man warned that persuading the other demon supremes would not be easy and walked away. The young master thought he was still the most dependable. The scene shifted to Paso, who shouted about the loss of front teeth. The man said they still had fangs and molars to fight or endure pain. Paso noted the man seemed delighted whenever a divine relic disappeared. The man said if his shackles were unlocked, he would probably start dancing. Paso admitted he feared it might all be a meaningless dream and wondered why he had given everything to the young master. The man pulled at his hair and said he was showing Paso how he had been charmed into giving up everything. Paso called him a crazy fool. Paso asked how Chong Xian could be made a demon supreme. The man explained that the existing demon supremes had to be convinced one by one and that it would require at least 2 divine relics. Paso realized this meant investing in the second young master. The man told him to stop relying on others and said that sometimes doing nothing brought the best results. He insisted the second young master would come and demand divine relics in exchange for helping Chong Xian. When a servant announced the second young master had arrived, Paso was shocked and complained that he had come to rob him again. The scene shifted as the young master congratulated Chong Xian on becoming the Sky Heaven cult leader's disciple and said he had news to deliver. He thought she would never know this all began with leaked information. Inside, he told Paso that the demonic Buddha was persuading other demon supremes to make Yan do the next soul-absorbing supreme demon. Paso cursed the demonic Buddha and realized this made Chong Xian's rise difficult. Unable to move freely himself, Paso asked the second young master if there was still a way to seat Chong Xian as demon supreme. The young master said there was a way to help Chong Xian become demon supreme, but it would not be easy. Paso asked what kind of way, and the young master said they would have to persuade the other demon supremes themselves, but the Blood Heaven Sword Demon and the Flower Sword Supreme were friendly to him. Paso hoped their help would be enough. Chong Xian asked the young master to help, and he warned it would not be simple and he might be deeply in debt to them. Paso promised they would never forget the favor, and the young master said he would do his best. Paso told Chong Xian to go train while he dealt with the young master. Paso asked if the young master wanted another divine relic, but he said no. Instead, he said he would treat Paso to a drink after everything was over and hoped it would be a victory toast. Paso agreed. The young master thought his true goal was to drink in the same place as the man with shackles. The scene shifted to Chong Xian practicing her sword techniques, and the young master noted that her soaring sword art had advanced tremendously. Chong Xian ran to the young master with a smile. He told her that once she learned the sacred poison purification technique, she could leave any time and live her own life. He offered her the choice to leave the cult and live peacefully as a hidden martial master. She said she was happier staying by his side and that being with him every day brought her joy. He sighed. The scene shifted to Paso. The Buddha confronted him about taking Chong Xian as his disciple and accused him of scheming. Paso said she came willingly. The Buddha said he should have sent her back and reminded him that the martial arts the demon sorcerers learned came from the blood cult. Paso asked if the Buddha now belonged to the blood cult and accused him of twisting words. The Buddha warned Paso that he was not in his own domain and explained that the other demon supremes might act unpredictably. Paso guessed the Buddha would try to have him killed. The Buddha said if that happened, they would at least have a proper farewell and advised Paso to pretend to search for relics and then leave quietly while expelling his disciple. When Paso asked what if he refused, the Buddha stayed silent and walked away. Left alone, Paso decided he would make the second young master the next heavenly demon. The young master arrived and apologized for being late. Sima told him not to worry and said he understood how busy the young master had been. The young master said Sima was the busy one while he was always slacking. They shared a drink and Sima asked why he had come. The young master asked what makes a good advisor. Sima said a good advisor is someone smarter than the enemy's advisor and explained that it did not matter if anyone else was smarter, even the young master, as long as he was smarter than the advisors of rival alliances. The young master was surprised by the clear answer. Sima said it might sound boring, but martial artists can improvise while advisors cannot, because one wrong plan could cause destruction. He told junior advisors to always become smarter with their lives on the line. Then Sima asked why the young master had asked such a question. The young master said he had been searching for an advisor and realized his meeting with Sima Myung was for this reason. He explained that his father would never share Sima with him and wanted Sima's advice on what kind of advisor he should look for. Sima stayed silent, and the young master thought he was hesitating, worried about how his words might affect him, the cult, or the succession struggle. Sima asked if he had already decided. The young master realized Sima knew about the man in chains and admitted he was considering him, but was unsure if it was acceptable. Sima said no one can ever be certain when choosing people and advised trusting his intuition for now. The young master understood this as approval and agreed to trust his instinct. The scene then shifted to investigator Derong, who noted they must be in the middle of discussion. The young master thought the demon supremes were meeting to choose the next successor, and he had no way of knowing the outcome. Derong asked if he was involved, and the young master said he was and noted it might be upsetting for Derong to be left out. Derong said he preferred not to know, and was fine learning about things later. The young master joked about Derong being funny, and Derong admitted he did not fully understand himself. Another investigator announced that the vote ended in a draw and the winner would be decided tomorrow through a duel between the first and third disciples. Derong asked who would win, saying he wanted to gamble at the marketplace. The young master told him to bet on Chong Xian, explaining it was really about the Sky Heaven cult leader's desperation. Derong said he would mortgage his house, but the young master knew he would not actually gamble. Derong smiled and left. The young master thought he owed his progress to the two elders. The scene shifted to the next day, where the audience and elders gathered around the hall. Chong Xian stood face to face with the man who insulted her and accused her of replacing their master. She calmly said that using their master's name to justify himself was blasphemy. He shouted for her to be silent, and the fight began as red mana filled the area. The man raised his hand and summoned a huge creature from the ground, shocking the audience. The young master observed and realized again why the soul-absorbing supreme demon was feared, as their fighting style was hard to counter. The battle intensified, but Chong Xian tore the creature apart with ease. The young master told the cult leader that the match was decided. When the dust settled, the man asked in confusion about her final technique. She said it was a lethal demonic art taught by their master. He cursed her in rage and insulted her past. She smiled and said she would become a far greater soul-absorbing supreme demon than their late master and make West Illusion Fort the greatest among the 8 demons. Blood poured from his mouth and he collapsed. The audience stared in shock as he fell completely. Chong Xian walked to the stage, bowed her head, and introduced herself. The Blade Man declared that a new master of West Illusion Fort had been born. The crowd praised her, and she smiled as the judges watched. Later that night, the cult leader acknowledged the young master's arrival. The young master introduced the innkeeper from the Pleasure Inn and said he brought him to cook a warm meal instead of cold food. The innkeeper bowed and promised to put his soul into cooking. The young master joked that he would rather not eat his soul and told him to cook normally. The innkeeper agreed respectfully. The young master congratulated the cult leader on taking a demon supreme as his disciple. The cult leader said it would not have been possible without him. The young master replied that it was only because the cult leader had taught her well. The cult leader called it a shared victory. Later at the dining table, the young master asked if he had met his father. The cult leader said he planned to meet him within a day. The young master told him to stress that he would raise Chong Xian into a soul-absorbing supreme demon stronger than the previous one, as that would matter most to his father. The cult leader said he understood and thanked him. The young master then asked to offer a drink to the shackled man. The cult leader questioned why, and the young master said it was simply because he had seen him often and wanted to share a drink on a pleasant day. The cult leader said the man could not drink alcohol, but his eyes widened when the shackled man accepted. The young master realized the man had never once accepted alcohol from the cult leader before. He stood up, poured the drink for the shackled man, and drank a cup himself. The cult leader then mocked the shackled man by saying his specialty was his dog-like nose that could smell thieves of divine relics, and laughed while pointing out that his shackle looked like a dog collar. The young master noticed it was a clear insult, and that the cult leader gave no chance for correction, which became an opening created by his careless words. The young master walked to the cult leader and offered him another drink. As the cult leader drank, the young master realized that when it came to the shackled man, the cult leader could not hide his emotions, much like another demon who lost composure over someone precious. Later, the cult leader apologized to those present and said he was truly trying to make amends. The man stayed silent as the cult leader exploded in anger and scolded him for his behavior, claiming he had given him every chance and accusing him of betrayal for accepting another person's drink. The cult leader said this place would be the only world the man would ever see. The man finally bowed his head and admitted his short-sightedness, offering an apology. The cult leader realized that from this moment on, they would never be able to speak openly and honestly again. The scene shifted to the investigator practicing with his sword while the young master watched and recalled his past emotional moments. The blade man arrived and asked if the young master had come to watch his subordinate suffer. The young master replied that the man already suffered enough during the day and that he had no such twisted hobby. When asked why he came so late, the young master said he had something to consult about and invited him inside. Inside the room, the young master noticed many books and remarked that they did not suit him. The blade man said they were only decorations, but the young master said they did not suit him even as decoration. The blade man shouted that if he counted all the books he read in his youth, it would match the number of people the cult leader had killed. The young master calmly replied that in that case, he would have become a great scholar. The blade man asked what the young master wanted to discuss. The young master said he wanted to remove the shackles of a subordinate of the Sky Heaven cult leader. The blade man said that if he wanted him, the man must be capable and therefore valued by the cult leader. The young master admitted that this was the dilemma. The blade man asked if the cult leader knew about this, and the young master said he did not. He also said he had not spoken a single word with the man but believed their hearts were connected. The Blade Man found this difficult, and the young master asked him to teach a method. When the Blade Man suggested killing the Sky Heaven cult leader as the easiest solution, the young master refused. He said the cult leader was not a good man but not evil enough to deserve death. The Blade Man pointed out that the real reason was that the cult leader was his treasure vault, and the young master agreed it was partly true. He accepted being a villain and said he would carry the karmic burden himself. The Blade Man said hell was for people like him and told the young master to walk a gentler path. He then said that if the cult leader was not killed, the only choice was to make the subordinate come on his own. The young master admitted he was not confident because they had never spoken. The Blade Man advised him to give certainty by showing him his people. The young master understood at once and remembered his own subordinates. The Blade Man said that once he saw them, he would no longer be able to resist. The Blade Man asked why the young master was staring at him. The young master said it was the best advice possible. The Blade Man downplayed it, but the young master said that among his people, the Blade Man ranked first, so the advice was the best. The Blade Man argued that this made it the worst advice and said that anyone would run if they saw him, so someone else should be shown. The young master insisted that he must come too. He explained that he wanted to show the Blade Man the kind of person he had chosen and also show what kind of person he himself was. He said this would help them understand each other better and become closer. He decided to go immediately and bring everyone who had time so the Blade Man could see whom he chose. The Blade Man called him a man. The young master thought that making even one person his own was extremely hard. Later that night the cult leader looked out the window and apologized to the man. The man said it was fine. The cult leader felt despair, thinking that if he could not win the heart of even one subordinate, speaking of advancing to the Central Plains was madness. He believed others swore loyalty on the surface but mocked him inside. When the man called him cult leader, his eyes grew teary because he thought he would never hear that again. The man said that the cult leader was trying to shackle him and take his heart as well, and reminded him that neither of them was blessed enough to keep everything without letting something go. The cult leader asked why he had accepted the young master's liquor. The man simply said there was no reason. The cult leader exploded in anger and demanded a reason, accusing the man of wanting to go to the second young master. The man stayed quiet until he said he had not decided anything yet. The cult leader took this as betrayal and accused them of secretly communicating, but the man said they had never exchanged any whispers. He explained that he knew because he read the young master's intentions and understood that he was wanted. The cult leader denied this and accused him of nonsense, but the man remained silent. The cult leader then realized his anger came from a premonition that this moment would arrive. He threatened to kill the man rather than let him go. The man calmly said that if he was to be killed, it had to be done now, because once he chose to live, no one would be able to kill him. The cult leader raised his hand in rage but noticed the man lowering his head, which made him hesitate. He finally calmed himself and said he would not let the man escape so easily and insisted there was still time since no decision had been made. He declared that he would become greater than the second young master to keep him. The man told him to keep living as he was and warned him not to cling, saying he only seemed valuable because someone else wanted him. The cult leader begged for a chance to persuade him and said he would cling desperately after all their years together. The man said it would not work because the second young master was not someone the cult leader could oppose. Desperate, the cult leader said that if the man was leaving, he should take him along. The man agreed and told him to come to the second young master and help make him into the heavenly demon, which would naturally fulfill his dream. The cult leader cursed him as insane, but the man then announced that the second young master had arrived with 5 guests. The cult leader realized that he was truly being pressured this time. They all entered the room together where the young master and his companions were gathered. The young master thought he had not told them about visiting the Sky Heaven cult leader because he wanted to see their true selves without preparation. The cult leader warmly welcomed the guests, and the young master explained that he had come on a whim to pay his respects with his companions. The cult leader said it was a good chance to mingle with the heroes of the heavenly demon divine cult, and the young master praised his broad mind. The Blade Man greeted the cult leader and openly declared himself the second young master's left wing, which surprised the young master. The Flower Sword Supreme clarified that she was not the right wing and spoke about her help in Changxian becoming a demon supreme, explaining that her support came from trust while the Blood Heaven Sword demon secured the full vote. The young master realized his earlier assumption had been wrong and noticed that the Blade Man never tried to take credit despite his efforts. The cult leader commented that the Blade Man was better than a friend, and the Blade Man replied that relationships in Jianghu were based on need and kept life clean. Jiang Ho then introduced himself respectfully, and the cult leader returned the courtesy while downplaying his own title. The young master reflected on Jiang Ho's steady and dependable nature. The investigator Xiao Daryang introduced himself, and the cult leader acknowledged him as the young master's right-hand man, which the young master confirmed. Leon then introduced herself, and the cult leader praised the spirit in her eyes. The young master declared Xiao Daryang as his right-hand man and Leon as his heart, clearly separating loyalty from sacrifice and revealing his view of leadership. The cult leader expressed envy and introduced his own right-hand man, the one wearing shackles. The young master noticed this was the first time the cult leader had done so and sensed a change between them. The Blade Man questioned why such a person was bound, and the cult leader said it was because the man would ascend if left unrestrained. The Blade Man replied that someone meant to ascend should be allowed to do so, but also acknowledged that such people were willful and not easy for humans to handle. The young master noticed how the Blade Man both advised the cult leader to release someone who should be sent off and praised the shackled man as a dragon meant to ascend. He thought that if the Blade Man had been younger, he might have taken him as an advisor. Later they all shared dinner, eating and drinking while talking freely. Leon asked if she could offer a drink to the shackled man, and the young master remembered how a similar moment had once caused a serious mistake. This time the cult leader smiled and allowed it, which made the young master realize that something had clearly changed. Leon poured the drink and spoke with the man about the Thunder Bell, saying that at first she protected the young master, but now he protected her. The man agreed and smiled. Leon then wondered if the young master truly wanted her to live her own life, or if he was trying to send her away because he disliked her. The man said that if he disliked her, he would never have called her his heart in front of everyone. Leon accepted this with a smile. The young master realized that Leon had sensed the true reason he brought everyone here. She joked that the young master teased her too much. The investigator explained that the young master worried deeply about his subordinates and did not want them to die, like a parent wishing their children to live well, and that this was why he was taught martial arts. The young master denied it and said he was training him to be useful later. The investigator replied that being used properly was sometimes better than serving an indecisive leader. They clinked cups and drank together. Leon asked why the investigator liked the young master so much, and he answered that it was because he was his right-hand man. Leon laughed, while the cult leader watched everything in silence.